Right. Welcome to the pre-show, everybody. It is our Security Plus study group. The November SY0501 Security Plus study group starts in about 10 minutes. If you are watching this live, get comfortable, grab a soft drink, get on the website. We'll give you all the information as we get started. If you're on replay, you could fast forward 10 minutes, but then you'd miss all of this. So let me get the chat popped out. Let's put that over here. Hello, chat room. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Folks called taking your test today. I'm assuming that's the Security Plus, since that's what we're doing today. So this will be your final run up to the exam. This will be fun. Hopefully the questions are going to be good enough. That puts some pressure on me. I can't change it now. It's locked in. There's no way the questions are going to get any different than what they are right now. I write all the questions usually before the weekend, during the weekend, somewhere in there. So they've been sitting there for a few days. I'm hoping they're okay. Just check cameras. They're good. We've already done the podcast. We're recording here. We're recording here. It looks like we're in good shape. Let's try not to knock over a laptop. That almost went on the floor. That would have been great. That would have been a fun way to start the whole thing. It really should be over here. There we go. A couple of inches changes everything. That's not the way to get a new laptop, by the way, is to throw it onto the floor in the middle of a live stream. That would not work very well. I think we're in good shape, though, now. We've got all things running. There were some last-minute things that happened outside of the studio that I had to take care of, and there's a whole flow. When you're planning for these things, there's a whole set of things that have to happen, and usually it's best if they happen in a particular order. But this time it did not happen that way. Things got changed around. And so my whole mojo got discombobulated a little bit. But I think we're back on track. I got some time to get back in the zen. I think we're all right. Breathe in, breathe out. I'm a vessel of love. See? Now we're back to normal. Okay. Let's see how things go. There's Orlando checking in. Testing in 2 weeks in Orlando. Is it in Orlando or are you in Winter Park? Are you in Kissimmee? Where are you really? He might be in Oviedo. We don't know where he is. Studied for 3 weeks, passed it 2 days ago. Congratulations. Very nice for that. There's Fort Pierce checking in. A lot of Florida checking in already. Welcome, everybody. And Tampa. See, you say that immediately. I guess it's a good place to be right now, Tampa. Finally, on the board, Norway. Welcome, Norway. That's a jump. We have Florida and Norway on. Boston is here. Boston, welcome. Boone, North Carolina. Haven't been to Boston in a while. I need to get there. Hey, Boston again. Baltimore. There's the Northeast, Virginia, Philly, New York, and Romania. That's not quite, that's very Northeast. North Carolina, upstate New York, Texas, another Houston, Texas. Means I'm one day closer to you. Phoenix, Albuquerque, Nashville. So this is good. We got a nice broad scope. Indiana, Oklahoma, Owasso. Did I say that right? In Oklahoma. I need to get my Oklahoma cities down. Cincinnati's here. There's Canada. Welcome. Mrs. Professor Messer always likes to know when the Canadians show up. I will let her know. There's Jacksonville, Southern California, Minneapolis, another New York City. There's Raleigh. Abu Dhabi, welcome. Brazil, India. A lot of internationals on this time. We're going to get started in about 4.5 minutes, everybody. There's Augusta, Lakeside, Jupiter, Florida. See more Florida checking in. There's another Canada and Indiana and another SoCal. Chester, UK. Welcome. This is always a fun one, the Security Plus by the way. There's Pembroke Pines. I used to live in Pembroke Pines and Miramar and Miami Lakes. Lived all over down there. Sweden is here. Algeria, welcome. We've got Indiana again. Minneapolis, San Jose. The other San Jose. No, the other one. Romania, Pakistan, We've got Ireland, a lot of internationals this time. That's really great. We're glad to have you here. We'll be doing all Q&A from the Security Plus in just a moment. Make sure all of my cameras look good. They do. Kind of flipping them around. You can kind of see my aux display there at the bottom left as I flip through the little cameras. That's very good. There's Dominican Republic. Welcome. Santo Domingo. Chesapeake, Virginia. Jamaica. South Carolina. Welcome. Birmingham, Alabama. So glad you're here. Haven't been to Birmingham in a while. I need to get back over there. They got a nice Apple store in Birmingham. Virginia, this is what I think of Alabama. Oh, they have a nice Apple store. You can tell I travel for business. Like, I know where the business hotels and the nice Apple store is in every city that I visit. Like, yes, but they have a rich cultural downtown center. Yes, and I've been there. It's very nice. I just think of the Apple store. Virginia, Clearwater. Southern Cal, Algeria, Asheville, North Carolina. There's Norman, Oklahoma. Glad to have you here. And finally, Bikini Bottom checking in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. SpongeBob. St. Louis, Missouri is here. That was the worst ever, by the way. This is why I'm not in voiceover work right there. We finally figured it out that's why. Greece, welcome. Go Tigers from Louisiana. We've got Columbus, Ohio here. Welcome. This is one of those things where when you start putting together all the different places, I just can't keep track. There's Montreal, another Canadian. Welcome. This is always good to have you here. It's a little chilly up there right now, so it's good to have you here on this. We got about 3 minutes till we get started and get all of these things going. Useful. Hello, Houston. Hello, Glendale, Arizona. Hello, Las Vegas and Nevada. Don't get a lot of Las Vegas on here. That's very good. There's a lot that goes on there. People just think of it as the tourist destination. I used to do a lot of work in Vegas that was not casino related. It was actual IT type work. There's Kent, Washington. Welcome. DC. Good to have you here. District of Columbia. Got a few more minutes till we get started. I've got a lot of Security Plus, and then after this, I do the replay. I got to put the podcast together, post those, get the replays up there, get all those things in place. There are some pretty big data centers in Vegas. A lot of what I did in Las Vegas was mostly corporate IT type things. I don't know that I ever went to, maybe I did go to one data center in Vegas, but there are some big ones there. It's just whatever I was doing for some reason did not take me to those. I love going to data centers. That was one of the most fun things that I would do in these jobs that I had as a systems engineer, doing cybersecurity, doing evaluation installations, doing real world installs. It was always a lot of fun to go into the really big data centers. I went in some really nice ones. Probably one of the nicest ones I was ever in was in Scotland. It was an amazing data center. There's a enormous Bank of Scotland there that I was in, and they had phenomenal data centers. In fact, that was the data center I got trapped in a room, and that's a whole nother story around all of that. There's Denver. Moscow is here. Which Moscow? There's quite a few to be able to get there. Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Welcome. Another Cincinnati, Ohio. Maryland. My Maryland, when you turn this this buzzer off that's on my wrist so you don't hear that the whole time. Very nice. We've got India again. Largo, Florida. Lots of Florida today. San Diego, California. Portland, Maine. I was just thinking about Maine. Went up there for the summer. Spent some time in Maine. It was very nice. Probably a little quieter now to get there. Moscow, Russia. Okay, welcome. Good to have you here. Should have known by the name Natalia. There's L.A. That'd be Los Angeles. Greenville, North Carolina. Got to get that one right. There's lots of Greenvilles. Not Greenville, Florida. Not Greenville, South Carolina. Detroit, D.C., Algeria. This is great. We got about 30 seconds until we get started. I think I've got all my ducks in a row here. We've just been sort of talking in the chat room about where everyone's from, and I've sort of been ignoring if I got everything I need to have here. I think I do. Let's get a presentation started. Let's get this thing moved out of the way. No, I don't need alarm. I need Keynote, and I need Keynote to give me a big green button right here. That's what I like right there. Okay, everybody, let's get started with the study group. I should probably get things ready on my side. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 2019 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group. This is coming to you live from Messer Studios. My name is James Messer, and I will be your host for the next hour of Q&A. I'll be asking you Security Plus questions in this first hour, and then online you will be answering those questions, which is kind of fun to do as well. And during the next hour, we do the after show, which is really more of a continuation of the original show, except I turn everything around and you ask me questions. I'll take questions from the chat room. I'll take questions from the phone lines. We'll open up the phone lines. I'll give you all the instructions you need on how to do any of those things in just a moment. Today, we're going to focus on answering questions for Security Plus. For you to answer these questions online, if you are watching live, this is what you do. This will not work if you're watching the replay. But if you're watching live, you can pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and there will be a question waiting for you. This is a service called Socrative. If you have a mobile device, you might even want to consider downloading the Socrative Student app. That student app will be able to play along on your mobile device, which is kind of fun. So you can find that. It will ask you for a room name if you're using the app. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word. Make sure you spell it right. PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure it's spelled right or you won't see the question that's waiting for you. And the question that's waiting for you says, when visiting a website, a browser complains that the website is not trusted. Which of the following would be the most likely cause of this issue? And there are questions and answers waiting for you. The possible answers are the certificate is expired, the web server version is outdated, the server has a segmentation fault, the server is configured with the default settings, or the server license is invalid. So choose from one of those five. Now, we call this our study group rewind question. This is a question from last month. So maybe you remember what we were talking about. You can see I've got the answers already up on the screen because this is the rewind question. Normally, we don't show you the answers until everybody locks in what they think the answer is. That's the way to do it. So if you think you know what the answer is, you go to professormesser.com/QA, or you can download the app, the Socrative Student app, to be able to get that. And the room name again, Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Well, thanks for being here. We'll give you the answer in just a moment. Lock in your answers. While we're waiting on that, I want to thank you for being here and remind you that we have A+ Network Plus and now Security Plus questions available on professormesser.com. Those will be available. I think the Security Plus comes out on a Thursday. You can get those on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. I'm also posting a few on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube community channel at professormesser.com/YouTube, I added last week's pop quiz question. A lot of people answered that one already. Thanks for stopping by there and doing it. And I'm hoping to get some out on Instagram at professormesser.com/Instagram. Also want to remind you that everything we're going to talk about today comes from the SY0501 exam. There's obviously over 100 videos that you have to look through to be able to understand everything that's there. I've taken everything from my videos and put them into one single book. This is my Security Plus course notes. The Security Plus course notes are extensive. And when I say I cover everything from my videos, I really do mean it. These are the course notes I've got on my screen right now. I'm just going to flip through there. How many pages is it? Over 93, 94 pages. So everything about viruses and worms, a whole first section here. You can see it goes through section by section. I've got this all set up to really give you everything from the videos. So if you're someone who's not good at taking notes or you just want a more comprehensive set of notes, you might want to look into that. It's at professormesser.com/securitycn. Also, we're getting into the holidays. You may be buying things on Amazon. A great way to support the site is by going to professormesser.com/Amazon. You pay exactly the same amount at Amazon and get the same low price, but Amazon gives us a slight commission on this side, and it does help keep the lights on. And we appreciate everyone who has taken advantage of that link. It's at professormesser.com/Amazon. Replays of this podcast are available on my website at professormesser.com/podcast. And there are podcasts there for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups. There are also video replays available as well. So you'll see those. So it's very useful to have all of those podcasts available. You may want to run through those before you take the actual exam. The video replays on YouTube include a timestamp. So you can click on the timestamp and go exactly to the next question, to the next answer, to the questions that we had during the week. My marketing manager, Lori, goes through all of these videos and timestamps everything. Hi, Lori. She's watching after this and in the replay so that she can add those. It takes about a day to add them, but it's kind of nice to have that immediately available. Today, all of our questions are going to come directly from the SY0501 exam. That is the latest Security Plus exam. It was released on October the 4th, 2017, which means it'll probably be about a year and a half before this version of the exam ever is retired. A lot of people are saying, well, it's 2017. Is it still going to be around? Yes, you have plenty of time to study for your Security Plus exam. So make sure, now about a year and a half from now. So you got plenty. If you're studying for the SY01, 501, then keep studying for the SY0501. That's what you'll do. Make sure you have it there. It's a single exam you take. It is a 90-minute exam. And a lot of people don't realize this. The parameters that you could get a maximum of 90 questions, it might be fewer than 90 questions. So some people are sometimes thrown that they get to the exam and there's not 90 questions there. Well, there could be, but usually there are less than 90 questions. That makes it useful. It's a passing score on a range from 100 to 900. You have to get a 750. What does that mean? I don't know. CompTIA doesn't tell us what that means. It's just the scale that they use. Every question we think is worth a different number of points. CompTIA said some questions you can get partial credit, some questions you can't, and you'll never know which ones those are. So the thing is, just don't worry about it. Go into the exam, do the best you can. The numbers will work out as they work out on the exam. It's going to be one of those things where just do your best, and we'll see how the score turns out at the end. The exam is a combination of multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. We're going to do both kinds of those today. So hang on, we're going to do a performance-based question right after we finish our rewind question of the month that we discussed earlier. That rewind question asked you, when visiting a website, a browser complains the website is not trusted. Which of the following would be the most likely cause of this error? And if you can see on the screen here, you can see that answer A, certificate is expired, was 91% of you. You've probably been in that situation where the certificate was expired. You go to the website, you get these crazy messages popping up in your browser that the website is no longer trusted. Seems odd. Yesterday we trusted it, and then suddenly the certificate is not valid anymore. It expired. Nothing happened to the certificate. It wasn't changed. It wasn't a third party. The site's not hacked. It's exactly the same site. It's just now the certificate's too old. And one of the great things about security is we like to make sure all of our certificates are constantly updated. That way, if somebody does happen to get access to that certificate, they would have only limited access to those particular encrypted or whatever you're using the certificate for to be able to gain access to those. So it's useful and important from a security perspective that you always keep your certificates fresh. And that is the right answer. So if those of you that have worked through certificate issues before, you know the trust is a big deal. Now, this can also be a big problem. And on my videos, section 2.3 under common security issues, I talk about certificate issues and cases where applications, especially applications on mobile devices, are just ignoring the certificate completely. So the certificate may not even be valid, and it's so easy to do a man-in-the-middle attack in those scenarios. So hopefully you remembered that one from last month. Indeed, answer A, 92% of you got that one absolutely right. Let's jump into a new question. Our first question of the month, our first new question of the month is a performance-based question. As I mentioned earlier, the exam has both performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions. Well, the question we just did, like that one, that's a multiple choice question where there are multiple choices available, and then you choose whatever question is there that makes sense. And that's an easy one. But the performance-based questions are very different. They're questions that are anything but multiple choice. They might be questions that ask you to put things in a particular order. You might be have to rank things from highest to lowest, fastest to slowest. It may be a drag and drop question. It might be a matching question. or it may be a question like the one we have today. The one I have today, I think, is more of a pull-down menu question where you have to choose the right answer from a pull-down menu. So let's see how you do today with this performance-based question that asks hash algorithm, block cipher, or key stretching library. Those are the three options that you need to choose from for these next 6 technologies. I want to know, of these 6 things, is this a hash algorithm? Is it a block cipher? Or is it a key stretching library? Now, for those of you listening on the podcast, and for those of you watching, let's go through all 6 of these. The first one is GCM. The second one is SHA. The third is CBC. The fourth is bcrypt. The fifth is HMAC. And the sixth is RIPE-MD. So you've got these 6 to choose from. Is it a hash algorithm? Is it a block cipher? Is it a key stretching library? Some of these things are brand new on the SY0501. So if you were studying older ones, you just don't know what you're going to run into when you hit that. Now, what you want to do, and this applies to all of the questions you'll be getting today, is you want to answer all of these questions at professormesser.com/QA. Do not answer in the chat room. Let's not have any hints in the chat room. Let's all pretend that we're taking the exam and we're sitting in the room. We have no resources available to ourselves. What could it possibly be? What is the answer? That's cool. We're good. You're fine in the chat room. Chat room's doing very well today, by the way. Thank you for being here and being so nice in the chat room. It does make everything go so much smoother for me because I'm the only one here who gets to moderate that. So those 6 answers again for those listening in. GCM, Golf Charlie Mike. You've got the second one is SHA, Sierra Hotel Alpha. The third is CBC, Charlie Bravo Charlie. The fourth is bcrypt. That's kind of a word. The fifth is HMAC, Hotel Mike Alpha Charlie. And the sixth is RIPE-MD. You've got Romeo India Papa Echo Mike Delta. RIPE-MD. Those are the 6 of them. And folks are putting these in. This is a fill in the blank in the online answer system. And a lot of you are doing very well on this. I'm scrolling through these because some of you put answers in here. I can't show everybody. But as I'm scrolling through, a lot of you are getting these. Some of you not sure what I'm talking about. Not asking. Nobody knows about those things. They're trying to figure out what are you talking about? Some of you are answering a few of them, which is great. So answer as many as you can. It could be that this type of performance-based question could be one that does give you partial credit because there's 6 options. You could choose any one of those 3 things for the 6. You might get partial credit. So try to answer on your exam as much as you can when you go through that. Hopefully that will help you with what you're going through as well. I see some of the ham radio people on the chat room are telling me what I'm doing with the phonetics. I'm trying. I'm getting there. I've got my extra license. I'm good to go. Got those things. Can we see the? I don't know if you can even see the Yesuits in the back there. But there are a number of things on here you need to think about. So let's go through all 6 of these one at a time and see if we really know what these happen to be. So let's go through these. The hash algorithm, the block cipher, or the key stretching library. Let's start with GCM. GCM is the Galois counter mode. That's what that stands for. And that is a block cipher. Block ciphers, by the way, are new on the SY0501. So if you were studying early versions of the Security Plus exam, block ciphers are sort of a new thing. So make sure you're familiar with what those are. So the first GCM is a block cipher. Let's go to the second, which is SHA. SHA, for those familiar with the secure hash algorithm, the answer is in the name. It is a hash indeed. Secure hash algorithm for that. Let's go to the third one, which is a CBC. CBC is a block cipher blockchaining, again, in the name itself. This is one of those rare situations, by the way, when knowing what the abbreviation is can help you answer the question. It doesn't always work out that way, does it? Somehow knowing that the GCM is Galois counter mode doesn't necessarily help you later on, but it does help you in this one because you can break through the block ciphers and knowing that it's a different mode and that type of thing. Number 4 was the bcrypt. bcrypt, all one word. Bcrypt is a library you would use to stretch out some keys. So if you were answering key stretching for bcrypt, that's the one you would do for the bcrypt. Make sure. For all of those, let's go to the fourth one, HMAC. HMAC is a hash. Again, it's in the name because it's a hash-based message authentication code. That is your HMAC. Very common to use with emails. That's where that message part comes in the name. And the last one, RIPE-MD. RIPE-MD, not a medical term. It might be after we finish studying for this whole exam. But RIPE-MD is the Race Integrity Primitives Evaluation Message Digest. That is a hash for those of you. So we've got block cipher, hash, block cipher, key stretching, hash, and hash. A lot of hashes in this one. So let's very quickly for those listening in, GCM is a block cipher, SHA is a hash, CBC is a block cipher, bcrypt is key stretching, HMAC is a hash, and RIPE-MD is a hash. So these are all terms that come directly from the SY0501. They are all in that final section of your exam objectives for cryptography. So if you wanted to learn more about these, you can, of course, go and look at the cryptography part of the exam, and hopefully you were able to recognize some of these. If you didn't recognize some of these, that's fine too, because now you know what they are. Now if you run into these, you'll remember, well, that's a hash. I might want to use that to check integrity of messages that have been sent across the network. Or this is another great way to help you also understand what to look for a performance-based question. These could have easily been 6 different multiple choice-based questions. Instead, they're crammed into one single question you have to choose from a different list. And all of those are things you must know when you get to those. So well done with that. I saw the answers come in. I can't show them on the screen and we don't consolidate them because it's a fill in the blank, but it feels pretty good to have that one and see all the answers that were coming in with that one. Let's do another question. Let's shift now to another, back to the multiple choice questions. This one might help us. And since we're talking about different types of hashes and block ciphers and key stretching, we could probably just keep the party going because I'm asking you this question. Which of the following would be the best way to digitally sign email content? Which of these would be the best way to digitally sign email content? Would that be SSL, IMAP4, SMIME, POP3, or SSH? Now, if you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA where you can lock in the answers right there. There's the link right there at the bottom, professormesser.com/QA, or it's already shown up on your screen because you were already there. You just stay on the same page, and these will change as we go. Which of the following would be the best way to digitally sign email content? Would it be SSL, IMAP4, SMIME, POP3, or SSH? Lock in your answers. Notice we don't see what people are locking in this time. You can't wait for people to lock in their answers. You have to lock it in yourself and see, did we get it right? Digital signatures, digitally sign email content on top of that. You can, of course, digitally sign anything, but email content was the specific question here. I'm not sure it makes a difference. It might in this question. We'll have to see if it really was for all of those. Let's see how we do with this. Which of the following would be the best way to digitally sign email content? Have a look at that. Lock in your answers. A lot of you already know this one. I can see when the numbers are going very quickly up into the list that we know what those happen to be. I know that folks are really, you're not Googling a lot of those for those and have all of those available. This is one where also you probably will want to know this. Not only for the exam, it's kind of nice to be able to have digitally signed email content on your system. And if you haven't done this in your email, you should get a package that does allow you to digitally sign email content just to try it out. I think that might be a useful one to have that there. Let's see how we did with this one. Let's click the How Do We Do button. 61% of us say we would use SMIME to digitally sign email content. 20% of us say, nope, that's SSL. That's what we would use. 11% say it's IMAP4 is what we would use in that particular case. Then it's down to single digits. 5% say POP3 and 3% say SSH. So 61% is a pretty big number. Is that really what we would be using with email? Well, one of the best things to use and built in to a lot of email clients is SMIME. SMIME stands for, again, the name kind of gives it away, the Secure Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions. So the multi-purpose internet mail extensions are useful, but having that secure piece on the front gives us a lot of flexibility for what we can do with our mail content. Do we need to encrypt the content? We can use SMIME to encrypt it. Do we need to digitally sign emails? Maybe we don't need to encrypt. Maybe we just need to send it with a digital signature. So yes, you can digitally sign it. Maybe you need to do both. Maybe you need to not only encrypt the information, but then digitally sign what you encrypted. That can be useful too. So this is a case where in this particular example, SMIME gives us a lot of different capabilities. So if you're dealing with email and dealing with, if you've ever worked with digital signatures and having to perform encryption in email and use a third-party application, it can be a problem. But if some applications, if the client you're using has already integrated the SMIME into the app, it makes things so much easier. And in this case, to be able, and this question's a really good one because it asks that question, by the way, that says, which of the following would be the best way to digitally sign email content? So this is one where the best way of these 5, SMIME really is the best. So simple to do that. Not all of these other technologies allow for digital signatures. In fact, if I look at the other 4, not a lot of digital signatures going on. SSL is an encryption mechanism, does not provide a digital signature, and not one for emails, certainly. IMAP 4 is a way to exchange or download email messages from a server into your client. IMAP 4 by itself does not provide any digital signature capability as well. You have POP3. Similar scenario there. POP3, retrieving email messages from a server. There is no digital signature functionality built into POP3. And lastly, we have SSH. And again, just like SSL, SSH does not have any digital signature functionality built into it. Can provide encryption. There is some capability for digital signatures and using certificates in SSH. But we were specifically talking about digitally signing email content, and we were looking for the best way. That is certainly not a good way to digitally sign email content. The best answer here, SMIME, is the right answer. That's the one that would really give you the best way to digitally sign all of those. Now, if you are in a situation where you need to be able to provide this type of functionality, you may want to see if the email client you're using supports SMIME, and you may have it already built into what you're working on. So if you answered C, SMIME, 61% of you got that one right. Well done. Let's do another multiple choice question. Let's do one here that gets into life cycles. This question asks, which of the following is most associated with the multiple stages of the IT life cycle? Which of the following is most associated with the multiple stages of the IT life cycle? Is it COBIT? Is it HIPAA? Is it SOX? Is it GLBA? Is it IDLE? You've got 5 options there to choose from. COBIT, HIPAA, SOX, GLBA, IDLE. All 5 of those are real things, by the way. All 5, in fact, the multiple stages of the IT life cycle is a real thing, and all 5 of those are real things. And all 5 of those are in the exam objectives for Security Plus. So if you're looking at this list and you're trying to understand what each one of these things is, and you come across one you don't recognize, make a note of it. Write that one down on your side to figure out what it is. That's going to help you whenever you get into this, try to figure out what do I need to study? You study the things you don't know yet. So those would be good examples of those. If you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. Don't put any guesses in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know this. And folks in the chat room have been given a very good tip, a very good hint for the exam. And that hint is that if you don't know what the answer is, just take a guess. On multiple choice questions, it's easy. Just pick one. Maybe there's a few of these you know, and you can kind of get rid of those. It leaves you with a couple of extra ones. You just lock it in and see what the answer is. See if that would be the way to do it. The way that I go through these is I just answer the best I possibly can. And if I don't know what it is, we just keep going. It's one of the things that will help you on the exam, because if you guess and get it wrong, what we do know of the exam is that there is absolutely no penalty for guessing. If you get it wrong, they don't take points away. But if you do happen to get it right, it's free points for you. So that's a great way to do it. Go through that process and figure out all of those different things. See if you happen to know what it is. I noticed it's going slower on the counter. See how the counter does that to be able to have that there? So figure out all of those details. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. For those of you just getting here, maybe that will help you find it for those and finding out all the different pieces of it. I think that helps me too, whenever I go through all these pieces. Let's see how we did with this one. I'm going to go by all of this and figure out the details. Let's see how we did. How do we do? Well, it's another one of those cases where 68% of you say it's idle. 21% of you, though, a good chunk, say it's COBIT. Then we're down to single digits, period, where 5% say it's GLBA, 4% say it's HIPAA, 2% say it is SOX. Now, this is whenever we get to this case where you're having to go through IT life cycle type questions. This is one that is really going to help you as you get into this and understanding these different frameworks. I think this one's going to help you too when you start going through the pieces of this. The frameworks are all in the exam objectives. So have a look at what we have with those objectives. For example, COBIT is the Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies. This is not a life cycle piece, but it's more of how you take your IT strategy and combine it with the goals of the organization, which, by the way, is extremely important as well to have those things there. Make sure that you are able to take your IT department and make sure it matches what the organization would like to do. There's not a lot of organizations out there that are purely IT. You're doing something else. You're a transportation company. You're a retail company. You're a healthcare company. There's other things going on. You are making all of those things work with IT. So you want to be sure those are matched up, and that's what COBIT would do. For this particular question, though, we wanted to know about the multiple stages of the IT lifecycle, and one of the best ways to do that is the framework available in ITIL. This is what they used to call the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, ITIL. They don't call it that anymore. It's just called ITIL. They just took the name. It's not an abbreviation of something. It's not an acronym anymore. It's a word with a lot of capital letters, ITIL. And that is one that focuses on the different stages of the IT lifecycle. You're designing a service, you're transitioning a service, the service is operating, your service strategy, you're improving the service over time. All of those things, and having it there is the answer. That is the one we were looking for with the ITIL, because it deals with the life cycle. So that's 68% of you that answered EITIL, which is not the name, and it's not the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. No, it's ITIL. We'll get all their branding right. They'll be very happy with us. It's not COBIT. We discussed why COBIT would not be the 21%. HIPAA, SOX, and GLBA primarily used for regulation of different industries and requirements that they have to be able to maintain those regulations. Does not fit into these multiple stages of the IT life cycle. ITIL really was the best answer there. So if you did guess ITIL and got it right, free points for you. If you knew it and locked it in, and if you didn't know any of these others, of course, make a note of those. Write them down, and you'll be able to work through what these answers happen to be later on. There's so much on the exam that you have to know about. I mentioned earlier that it's good to have a set of notes. I always talk about that you need to have a good book, watch some good videos. Hopefully they'll be mine. Get plenty of hands-on, and I think you should with Security Plus as well. And I always tell you to get a lot of Q&A. Try to get as much question and answer done. This will probably be the last thing you do, is go through a lot of questions and answers. But one of the things that I didn't have for you is a good example of that. And it's very hard to find good questions and answers on the internet. I don't know if you've noticed. It's really difficult to find high-quality Q&A that matches what the exam is expecting of you. So I thought, why don't I write some? Why don't I create 3 separate practice exams that are designed with the same format, with the same distribution, with the same types of questions that you could expect to see on an actual Security Plus exam. These include performance-based questions, multiple choice-based questions. I tried to create an exam that would closely simulate the one you would get if you sat in the room. Now, it's not the same questions you're going to get, but it does have the same feel. The questions have the same cadence. I tried to give them the same voice because the questions on the Security Plus exam are extensive. They're big questions. It's almost a reading comprehension exam if you've ever seen these questions. I've got some here I can show you. I'll show you my sample of my practice exams that I have here. So I've got a page of my practice exams right here. In fact, we'll do this one, A15. Which asks Rodney, a security engineer, is reviewing the record from the firewall logs. In fact, this one has a firewall log record right on it. And it says, which of the following can be observed from this log information? And there are 4 answers there. And I put all of these questions on the screen so you can answer those questions. Now, I have a single page that has all of the answers on it in this quick answer. But I also have this details page that if you click on it, and of course, this is, if you're digitally, you click on it to be able to do this. If you have the book version, the physical version, you go to page 57. So we'll click on the details, and it gives us the answer of what it is. In this case, a download was blocked from the web server. Tells you why that answer was the right answer. And here's the part I like about this book is every single question, I tell you why that particular answer was right. And then I tell you why all the other answers were wrong, which is the part about these other exams, these test exams that you'll go through that drive me crazy is they don't tell you either why the answer was right or why the other answers were not right. I learned just as much by going through the other answers as I did the one that was correct. So you create this feedback loop as you're going through the book where you're, of course, seeing if you knew the answer, but then you're learning all these other things about the technologies that were there. And then lastly, at the bottom, I give you a link to the video that talks about the topics discussed in the question. So if nothing in the question looked familiar to you, all of this about IT frameworks, and you're wondering where did that come from, you can simply either click the link that I have here, or if you have your camera app open, you just point your camera app, you don't take a picture, you just point the camera of your mobile device right here at this QR code, and it will take you to that link if you have the book version. So I have 3 full exams in here to do that. So there is so much in this book. It took months to write this, as you can imagine. I'm really happy with this book. There are both physical versions, digital versions of the book. Let me show you a physical version. It's a big book. As you can imagine, it's a thick book full of questions and answers. Plenty here to go through. I think it's 400 pages when you go through this whole thing for these practice exams. It's something that a lot of you have already tried it. You've downloaded the book. You've tried it out. You've taken your exam, and you are very happy with the results of this. You want to learn more about these practice exams, you can find them at professormesser.com/securitype for security practice exams. The practice exams book is $25 on its own. If you get a bundle with the course notes, it's $40. So you can actually save if you buy them together. And there are both digital versions and physical versions available. You can click the links on the website to find which one works for you. You can find out about those at professormesser.com/securitype. So hopefully that will help you for your exam. And I hope to have more practice exam books available soon for the other courses available on my site. It's been so well received. Let's do more practice exams ourselves, though. Let's step through another one that asks this question: which access control model assigns a label to each object and access is determined by the administrator? Which access control model assigns a label to each object and access is determined by the administrator? Is it mandatory? Is it attribute-based? Is it role-based? Is it discretionary? Is it rule-based? It's got to be one of those. All 5 of those are actual control models, access control models. So all 5 of them mean something. This is another one of those that if you don't recognize the answers, it really is helpful to write them down and look at them later. Which access control model, though, assigns a label to each object and access is determined by the administrator? Is it mandatory, attribute-based, role-based, discretionary, or rule-based? Have a look at that. Lock in your answers at professormesser.com/QA. Maybe some of you in the chat room recognize this and you think, I know what that one is. Lock it in. Get those answers in there. If you don't know what it is, this is another one that you can take a guess. See if you can put that one in there. These access control models are big on the exam. There are, as you can see, there are at least 5 of them you have to know. And all 5 are very different from each other. There's not a lot of similarities between these different ones. So feel free to go through all of that and figure out those pieces. If you want to know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. You can lock all of those things in, figure out all those pieces. Whenever I look at trying to figure out these questions too, this one doesn't give you a lot of chances to throw one out, does it? Because you kind of have to know what all 5 of those control methods are to be able to start removing them from the list. But maybe you happen to know control methods. You happen to know what those happen to be. This might help you. Control methods are definitely something you may see on the exams. It's a big section to be able to have that there. Let's see how we have done so far. A lot of you have locked in your answer already. Let's see what you thought the answer was for this one. We don't know. We are completely mixed. Let's go through the percentages. 29% of you say it's attribute-based. 26% of you say it's role-based. 20% of you say it's mandatory. 18% of you say it's discretionary. And then 7% say it's rule-based. So you've got a few options there that you're going through to figure out what this happens to be. We've got kind of a mix of those to have this here. This is one where you do have to really understand what those differences are and where those might come from. Let's have a look at what we think this might be. This is one where the assigning a label to each object. This is commonly done with a mandatory access control. So every object that is in the operating system, a folder, a file, a document, anything that's in the operating system gets a label. A very common set of labels you might associate with this is security clearance labels. So it may be a secret, a top secret, a classified, a public. So you can have all of those to have those different pieces going. So whenever you start breaking through and trying to figure out how do we assign these things, though, who gets to assign the labels to this of the confidential and the secret and the top secret and everything else? Well, we need an administrator that overlooks these systems, and they will go to each individual object and go, that object is confidential, that object is secret, that object is top secret. And then as a user, you have a certain level of access that you have available. Maybe your level of access only allows you to see confidential objects. Maybe your level of object only allows you to see secret objects and confidential objects. You've got different options in there of what you can choose from, but it has to be an administrator to do it. You as the end user don't get to choose what level you get access to, because that would defeat the whole purpose. You, of course, have to be allowed access to the system. You are then determined by the administrator what you can access, and the administrator gets to determine what the security levels are of the different objects. And that's why the mandatory access control, MAC, is our right answer for this one. If you look at 19% of you, mandatory is what you would work through. The mandatory access control. This does have that military feel to it, doesn't it? That's a good tip from Harold in the chat room. Remember that MAC is close to military. It's got that M, military MAC. You remember that combination and know that it's secret, top secret, those types of things. It fits very well. That's a good way to remember those things going through. Only 20% of you chose mandatory. Wasn't trying to trick anybody, but I think this would be one that really does provide the right answer for this one. All of these other access control models use different methods to assign labels or to assign access to those objects. And then some of them are determined by the end user. Some of them are determined by administrators. You've got different options available. In fact, the role-based is a very good example of this, that your role in the organization is the thing that determines that. if you are a certain role, if you happen to be in the marketing department, if you're an administrator, if you're a manager, if you're a CEO, if you're in the C level, it'd be different capabilities there for the role-based and having those there. So a little bit different in how those work. You're not really assigning a label to the object, you're assigning a role to the object. Think of it that way and how it works with all of those pieces. That's one where you, as I mentioned, you have to know all of those different access control models. If you don't know the details of those, it is in section 4.3, and my video is oddly named Access Control Models. So I've got them all in there. If you wanted to go into that video, I break down every single one of those different control models, and then you can figure out what the differences are between them. I show you the nuances of each one of those to figure out the details. Have all of those there. Let's go to another question. Now that we've gone through this one, dealing with those and talking about the way employees are working, let's see if this one would be one that you can remember and access. This one is a question that asks, which of the following would be the best way to identify employee fraud? This is one of those things that as a security professional, there are certain things that you will be involved with, and dealing with employee fraud is one of them. Which of the following would be the best way to identify employee fraud? Would it be role-based awareness training? Would it be penetration testing? Would it be mandatory vacations? Would it be chain of custody? Would it be tabletop exercise? Those are your 5 options there. Which of the following would be the best way to identify employee fraud? Would it be role-based awareness training, penetration testing, mandatory vacations, chain of custody, tabletop exercise? Try to fit those in and figure out what they happen to be. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can lock in your answer right there to know exactly what that one happened to be. Which of the following would be the best way to identify employee fraud? This is one of those situations, and I ran into this too when I worked in the cybersecurity field, where you're working with highly technical security equipment. I'm installing, in fact, I was working with next generation firewalls that we were plugging into people's networks for the very first time. This was very early on, the very first generation of these. And we were seeing information on the network that no one had seen before. And we were very easily picking out things on the network that people had no idea was going on. And I would literally be in a demonstration of this technology. Thanks for having us in. We plugged in the device last night. Let's see what we found. I'll bring up the first page, and it will list all of the applications that are being used on the network. And sometimes peer-to-peer applications would show up. You'd have different URLs that would show up. And because we were integrating with things like Active Directory, you would see someone's name next to the activities that were going on in the network. As you can imagine, sometimes something would be so egregious that immediately the security team would say, we have to stop for a second. I've got to leave the room and make some phone calls, and I'll be back. So it's uncomfortable when you're in that situation that you really are seeing on the screen, that person's getting fired today because of what they just did on the network. That's something you will see all the time in your job as a security professional. It's not you that did it. You're not the one who's handling that. There's a whole policy in place to keep that from happening. Employee fraud's another one of those to have this here. So employee fraud is a little bit of a challenge. So let's see what you think the answer was with this one, and you should be able to figure out the details of this. If we look at the answers you chose, mandatory vacations came at 57%. So if we had to go with the majority answer, that would certainly be the one. 21% of those say chain of custody is how we would identify employee fraud. We've got penetration test or role-based awareness training is the next highest one at 11%. We have penetration testing at 5% and tabletop exercise at 5%. So employee fraud's an enormous issue. Employee fraud's a huge problem because it's happening inside of your company. And being able to do this, how in the world can you stop fraud on the network? And interestingly enough, one of the best ways to do it, send people on vacation. Require that people go on vacation. So if you've got somebody who is skimming some money off the top, they're changing some of the numbers in accounting, they are moving equipment around, they are falsely sending invoices, those types of things, one of the best ways to find it is you send them away. They are required to go on vacation for a certain amount of time every year. This is actually a very common thing to do. And when they leave, someone else, of course, takes over their particular job role while they're gone. They step in, and while they're there, everything may be going perfectly fine, or they may be seeing odd invoices showing up, or suddenly we're not seeing the problems we were seeing with accounting. All of those things can happen when somebody leaves the organization for at least a couple of weeks. You really want to see that. And you're not searching for a problem as much as you are watching to see how are things running while this person is gone. This happens all the time. You don't need to have somebody on vacation to go through their things. You're the company. In the United States, at least, it's the company's equipment. It's the company's data. The company can do whatever they'd like. But if you had no idea what was going on, having someone leave on vacation and suddenly it arises, suddenly the person in their job saying, wait a second, this is new. This is something I wasn't expecting. So mandatory vacations is a way to do that. Another way to do it, by the way, job rotation. So if you don't know what employee fraud is, I gave you a few examples of that earlier, of how that might work, of odd invoices, accounting changes, suddenly not as much money being deposited every night as you thought there would be. Usually it is a money issue. Job rotation is another good way to do it. You're going to work in this job for 3 months, then you're moving to that job, then you're moving to that job, then you're moving to that job. The more people involved, the less likelihood there's going to be some employee fraud. So that's a good example of those situations. Mandatory vacations, a great way to do it. And so those of you that did answer C, mandatory vacations, absolutely spot on. 56% of you, that is exactly what you needed to know. 22% of you said chain of custody. Now, why would chain of custody not identify employee fraud? Chain of custody is a way to make sure that nobody does anything to the evidence that we've collected. They don't change the evidence. They don't access the evidence. They don't do anything with that evidence. That it's exactly the same evidence that you're looking at in the future that you have collected in the past. And that chain of custody is something that will allow that. Well, obviously, you're not identifying employee fraud based on a chain of custody. Chain of custody is providing you with a way to maintain integrity of the evidence that you've collected. It is a control feature for the evidence. Doesn't actually identify anything. It's just a way to maintain the evidence. 11% of you said role-based awareness training. And role-based awareness training might be a good way so you get everybody who's associated with marketing would come in and we talk about security from a marketing perspective. Or maybe the awareness training was created for the upper level of the company. And you're talking to them about problems that would be associated at the C-level of a company, the different phishing attacks, especially spear phishing attacks for those folks. That would be a good one to know about. But role-based awareness training is not going to help you identify any employee fraud. It will just help you train people better. You have 5% of you that said penetration testing. Penetration testing, very good for identifying devices that are susceptible to known vulnerabilities, but they don't tell you anything about employee fraud. That would be a very powerful penetration tester if you're able to run it and see every person who was identifying employee fraud. Great way to do it. And then 5% said tabletop exercise. Very useful for going through things like a disaster recovery exercise without actually calling the exercise itself and going through the entire process. Instead, everybody gets in a room and you're hit with a scenario. What do you do? And you all talk through what you would do to have all of those things there. The best answer here, the only answer here that would provide you with any inkling that there may be employee fraud is C, mandatory vacations. 56% of you did a great job with that one. That's how you would make that happen. Now, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, some of you use this for CompTIA CEUs. I recognize a lot of you aren't collecting CEUs anymore, and that's fine too, but I'll at least give you the option to be able to do that. This is one where you want to follow the instructions I give because the instructions themselves are part of the earning of the CEU. So make sure you follow these instructions. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link there. It really contacts me. It sends me a message. So it's going to pull up a list that says put in your email address. Make sure you put in the right email address because I have to send this back to you. You put in your name and put in a subject line. In that subject line, if you would put that this is the November 2019 Security Plus Study Group, and that the super secret code word of the day is in that subject line, helps me a lot. Our super secret code word is vacations. Vacations. That sounds nice this time of year, doesn't it? The super secret code word is vacations. And if you want to put that in the body of the message, that's fine too, as long as I can easily find it. And if there's anything else you wanted to put in the message, these are all being sent to me. So if you want to put a message to me, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I like to get those and read through them. I'm not able to respond to every single one of them that I receive, but I try to send a few of them back there to be able to do that. So that would be something useful that would allow you to earn one continuing education unit credit for this. And it's something that is qualified by CompTIA as a webinar credit. You know, for the Security Plus, you have to collect, if you're collecting CEUs, you have to collect 50 CEUs to renew your certification. For Security Plus, you can only collect 10 webinar category CEUs. So you can't watch 50 of these and renew your certification, sadly. That would be so nice, wouldn't it? But you could watch 10 to get a collection of 10. These days, most everybody's using CertMaster CE. I have a video, if you go out to the YouTube and search for how to renew your certification in just a few hours. That's a video that will show you exactly how to do that using CertMaster CE. These CEUs will work for, since there's a security component to Network Plus and a security component to A+, these CEUs will also apply to those certifications as well. So if you got a Network Plus certification and you want to use this as a CEU, absolutely qualifies as that. Now, you don't have to have me send you a message back to confirm that you were here, but I like to do that just in case perhaps you're audited by CompTIA for your CEUs. You will have a digitally signed email from me, which means you could not have modified it, because they can check the digital signature and make sure that I'm the one that sent you a return email that says you were certified for 1 hour because I got your super secret code word. That's what that's for. So thanks for watching. I'm more than happy to do that for you as well. Let's do another question. We got some time. It is not done with SMIME. It's done with GPG is what I use to do that. In fact, if anybody wants to try that, you want to use GPG or PGP to send me a message or digitally sign an email, you're more than welcome to do that. I will send you a message back that's encrypted, or I will send you a message back that's digitally signed. You can see if you received it properly. I like to do those. Those are fun to do too. So you're more than welcome to do that. Occasionally I'll get an email message that just looks like garbage on the screen. I think, oh, somebody sent me an encrypted message. Let me decrypt that for those. So that'd be useful. Quickly, before we go to the next question, a chat room said, can we double up the CEUs if we have Network Plus and Security Plus? Could you use the same one for each? You can't, because CompTIA only requires you, or CompTIA allows you to renew your certification with your highest level certification. So if you have your A+, your Network Plus, and your Security Plus, renewing your Security Plus also renews all those lower level certifications for those. So absolutely to have that there. Let's do some more questions. We've got some time left. Let's get through another couple of these. The next question, speaking of encrypting and decrypting, here's a question that asks, a security engineer is using the same key to encrypt and decrypt data. Which of the following is the engineer using? Is the engineer using PGP, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, Blowfish, or SHA-2? A security engineer is using the same key to encrypt and decrypt data. Which of the following is the engineer using? Are they using PGP, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, Blowfish, or SHA-2? Now, if you've been paying attention, some of these might be familiar to you based on what you do in here today. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Interestingly enough, people in the chat room saying, I don't think that's a good idea, but actually, it is the most common way of encrypting and decrypting data on the internet. When you buy things in your browser, that's using the same key to encrypt and decrypt. So how is it secure? We'll talk about that in just a moment. and why it's extremely secure to be able to do that. Now, this question did not ask exactly what I think a lot of people were hoping. And the answers that were there were not what I think a lot of people were expecting. So I'm requiring a little more of you to be able to do that. So make sure you go through thinking about what all 5 of those happen to be. Remember, no answering in the chat room. We want to answer at professormesser.com/QA to go through all of these. This is one where, as we're going through these different questions, you may recognize some of the terms that we already used today. And that's a really good tip on your exam, is that as you go through your exam, there will be certain questions that fire some synapses in your brain that will allow you to answer other questions on the exam. Effectively, the exam itself will answer other questions on the exam, which is great. So make sure as you're going through the exam that you go through it another time. Leave enough time that you can cycle back through these questions, especially maybe flag ones you really don't know, so you can quickly go back to those questions. And you may recognize, oh, wait, we talked about that later in the exam. That's why that question is different. And that might really help you when being able to see those things on the exam. Use the exam to answer questions on the exam. And it works. It happens almost every time I take an exam, that one of those things. For the CompTIA exams, you can move to any question at any time on the exam throughout the entire exam period. You are not forced down one question to another. That's a little different with Cisco. With Cisco exams, you have a question. When you answer that question and go to the next question, that's it. You can't go back. CompTIA, you can. So this is great. You can jump to any question. You could start at the last question, jump to the middle, go to the front anytime. You got complete flexibility. So take advantage of that. That's a strategy for your test taking. Take advantage. Use the exam structure to pass the exam. That might give you a couple extra points on your exam. Let's see how you did with this one. A security engineer is using the same key to encrypt and decrypt data. So which of the following is the engineer using? How much is it? What is it doing? Let's see how we did with this one. We don't know. We're completely torn on this one. Here is the breakdown for us. 26% of us say PGP. 24% of us say Diffie-Hellman, 24% of us say SHA-2. So effectively a 3-way tie for first. In second place, Blowfish. And the last place, Blowfish was 18%. And last place with 9%, ECC. So the real key here, and the thing I think that most of you were hoping would come up when you saw this question, which was the security engineer using the same key to encrypt and decrypt data. Somebody may have said in the chat room, perhaps as a hint, but I let it go, that they were hoping the answer would be symmetric, because that's symmetric encryption. If you're using the same key, it's symmetric encryption and symmetric decryption, symmetric cryptography. If you were using a different key to encrypt than decrypt, 2 separate keys, that's asymmetric with the A on the front. So you were hoping when we got to the answers that you would choose symmetric. Not one of the answers was not there. So that really becomes a problem now as we go through this. How do we find what this is? Well, now you have to know what the symmetric algorithms are. Or perhaps you have to know what anything but asymmetric algorithm is. So that might help you as we go through this. So you have to look through this whole list and find the one that happens to be a symmetric algorithm. And if you know the content from your CompTIA exam objectives, then the one that should jump right out at you is Blowfish. Blowfish, designed back in 1993. And that is one that is a symmetric algorithm. You would encrypt and decrypt with the same key. And that's a pretty common way to do this. There were a number of encryption mechanisms I used back in the day where the Blowfish was useful. It's a 64-bit cipher, though. So there is a variable length key associated with this that would go to 448 bits, but they wanted to make one that was a little bit stronger. And so they made Twofish. Blowfish, Twofish. I think there's a children's book. There is 128 bits in the block size of Twofish with key sizes that go up to 256 bits. So a little stronger, able to withstand a lot more brute force. So a little bit easier to use over Blowfish. A little more, I wouldn't say easier, but certainly one that's a little stronger to use over Blowfish. Both of those are symmetric algorithms to be able to do this. So this is one you do have to know about for your exam, what all of the symmetric algorithms are, what the asymmetric algorithms are. Very useful to know that. So the answer here, only 17% said Blowfish. It was not even in the top 3 or the 3 that were tied for first for Blowfish. Now, what about all these others, though? What about the other options you have here? Because you do have a number of different options to go through on this list. Well, I've got the 5 here. Let's start at the top. We'll just go with PGP. Pretty good privacy. And this is a method of asymmetric encryption where you are encrypting with one key, you are decrypting with a completely different key. 26% of you chose PGP. The electronic code book, that is one that is a block algorithm. So the algorithm itself and that particular block algorithm is one that would not be used for using the same key. It's a method of encryption, but it's not used in the way that would encrypt and decrypt using the same key. 8% chose ECC. Diffie-Hellman, not an encryption method at all. Diffie-Hellman is a key exchange method. How do we send our private information to another person across the network without sending the key along with it? Diffie-Hellman does that. So that would be one. That would be useful to have that there. So we've got Blowfish is the answer, and then SHA-2. So SHA-2, 25%. Did I say electronic code book? That'd be ECB. ECC is elliptic curve cryptography, which is an asymmetric. That's why I put that one there. SHA-2 is a hashing. We talked about SHA earlier. I think I just said SHA earlier, but SHA-1 and SHA-2 are the SHAs. And those are a secure hashing algorithm. Hashing is not encryption, so it would not be SHA either. The only option here is using the same key to encrypt and decrypt data. Now, I mentioned earlier, because there was a little bit of a question when we brought this out, said, why is this security engineer using the same key to encrypt and decrypt? Well, that's probably because it is an extremely fast way to encrypt and decrypt. Doing symmetric cryptography, generally speaking, has a much lower overhead than doing asymmetric encryption. And so when you connect to a website and you purchase something on a credit card and there's a little lock at the top, you go to ProfessorMesser.com, every page on ProfessorMesser.com is encrypted. So there'll be a little lock at the screen on ProfessorMesser.com. The actual encryption back and forth is using symmetric encryption. Well, wait a second. We're using the same key. That doesn't sound very safe to be able to do that. But in fact, the way that we transfer that key to each other, we transfer it using asymmetric encryption. And that's probably one of the most common ways that asymmetric encryption is used, is we'll send information asymmetrically with the key. You will then decrypt, get the key on that side, and now both of you can use a very fast, low overhead symmetric key to be able to transfer data that nobody was able to get their hands on because you sent it over the network with asymmetric encryption. How about that? We're using both of those to be able to make that happen, and we're doing it in a way that makes sense. In fact, that's a very common way that people who are infected with crypto malware or ransomware, where an entire system gets encrypted, it's very common for the bad guys to encrypt everything with a symmetric key, and then they will encrypt that key on your machine with asymmetric encryption and make you buy the asymmetric key to unlock that. So it depends, sometimes used for good things, sometimes used for not good things to be able to do that. This is one that's useful to know. There's an entire section on cryptography. This one came directly from section 6.2 for symmetric algorithms and being able to use that and make that happen. So if you're not familiar with these methods, these asymmetric and symmetric systems, go have a look at those. They'll be able to give you a lot more detail in those videos than we were ever able to do in the study group. Can you believe it's been an hour of a study group? Me either. Every single question of this, by the way, came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. I tell people all the time, get your hands on these exam objectives. These are extremely useful. Look at the details. This is just section 1 of network security. You need to know firewalls, routers, switches, load balancers, proxies, web security gateways, and so on. I've had people tell me after they've taken their exam, they said, I wasn't going to look at the exam objectives. I thought they were just a high-level overview. No. Everything you need to know is in here. It is an extensive list of what you need. This should be the first thing you download before you start your studies. It should be the last thing you use as a checklist before you go into the exam. This is a soup to nuts comprehensive view of everything you need to know. All of my videos are written specifically to these exam objectives. Everything I do is focused on these exam objectives. If you know everything in the objectives, you're going to pass your exam because you've now got a complete understanding of everything that's expected of you. Make sure you are familiar with this and have this here. Somebody else in the chat room said, how often do we do these things? We do a Security Plus study group once a month. Our next Security Plus study group will be on December the 18th. Feel free to stop back by. We'll do more Security Plus Q&A. Of course, we have another hour of Q&A, but you're going to ask me questions here in a moment. If you're looking at this video and you're well after December 18th, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar because in December we have an A+ study group on the 3rd, A+ study group on the 5th, Network Plus study group on the 11th, and finally our Security Plus study group on the 18th. There's always a live event going on somewhere that you can find out about. And that's all on the calendar. You'll be able to see all of them. They're also on the right sidebar of the website. Don't forget about my course notes. You can find out about that at professormesser.com/securitycn and my practice exams at /securitype. Don't forget of subscribing on YouTube. I had a great meeting with my YouTube representative this past week. It's always nice to be able to interact with them directly. I'm able to do that thanks to you. You are subscribing to my channel. You're liking the videos. The folks at YouTube see that, and they say, we want to help you be successful on YouTube the same way your watchers want you to be successful. Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. You can subscribe if you haven't at professormesser.com/YouTube. And if you're watching this live, you can subscribe right there. Don't forget about the Security Plus pop quiz question. It's going to come out tomorrow, every Thursday, on the Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. I try to put some things on Instagram, and I keep saying I'm going to put more questions on Instagram. I need to do that this week. I will remind Lori, who's watching this, that we're going to do that this week. And then, of course, don't forget a great way to support the site without spending any money whatsoever. Go to professormesser.com/Amazon. Thanks for being here for this first hour. Stick around. I'm going to turn this around, and you're going to ask me questions, and we'll see where things go from there. And if you do have to leave, we thank you for being here. We love doing this every month. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Let's see if I can get the other things going. Here we go. I need to get my side set up. I will be taking questions from the chat room. I will be taking questions from the dial-in lines. I'm going to set up those call-in lines right now so we have them there. Sometimes people call in, sometimes they don't. I get it. That's fine. I don't want to have that there. Have all of those. Some of you, it's much easier to do it on the chat room, isn't it? Why? We have to talk on the phone like in person? That's what my generation was used to doing. But I also like taking questions from the chat room. Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of the questions already coming in on the chat room. Let me call in myself to the chat room. This takes just a moment. Bear with me if you would. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to call in to this line. It's going to beep a little bit. There we go. That's loud. Let's turn that down some. And I will call in and push some buttons on my side. I like it when it makes the noises. And then it says,
enter your...
I will do that. I'll enter my 6-digit PIN number. That's what it said.
Welcome.
See, it all works. If you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to. There's a toll-free number available in the continental United States. You can call in at 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies is 855-785-7545. You can also call in anywhere in the world for free. No money required, nothing you have to do. You just have to have a Skype account because Skype will call into these toll-free numbers for no Skype minutes. It's absolutely free. You just put a +1 at the beginning. The +1 is 855-785-7545. So the same phone number with the +1 right there at the beginning. And you can call in as well to be able to do that. So you've got some options there to have all of those. So that's one where it does come in handy to be able to do that, have those pieces available. So very quickly, before we go to the phone lines, we were just talking about symmetric key exchange using asymmetric encryption. In fact, the way most people do it is using things like Diffie-Hellman to exchange the keys. That's a very good way to do it because Diffie-Hellman, everybody has their private key that nobody else has. You exchange public keys, which everybody has access to. You combine a public and private key on both sides. And because those keys are mathematically associated with each other, they create the same symmetric key. So by simply making sure both sides have access to the other side's public key, you effectively can create a symmetric key that nobody else would be able to create without having to transfer the key across the network. So that's a very good example in that key exchange of how that might work. You can do the same thing with asymmetric encryption. As long as people have both sides, you then encrypt it with that asymmetric encryption, send it to the other side, and then using your private key, you can decrypt it and then use a symmetric key back and forth. Both are certainly viable ways to transfer keys across the network without somebody being able to see what that key happens to be. And then once you have the key, you can then use that as your symmetric key to send information back and forth. Very useful to have that there. My video on Diffie-Hellman describes the process of how that works. I map it out for you visually so you can see, oh, that's the way Diffie-Hellman works. There's a few videos on YouTube that also talk about there as well. So that might help you. Let's go to the phone calls. We've got a few folks that are calling in. So let's go back to, I want to say go back to the phone lines. Let's go to our first call, the 614 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from? Caller. I hear me.
Professor.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you for calling. What's your question?
Hello. This is Sandy calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome, Ohio. What can we do for you? You may want to listen in to the phone line and not the stream because the stream runs about 5 to 6 seconds behind.
Oh, okay. I got you. I'm just calling to appreciate you once more for the material. The material has been very helpful. The videos, the question, everything has been very helpful.
Oh,
I got my Security Plus yesterday, and I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. You did the hard part. Congratulations on that. That's a tough exam to get. And was I right that the questions seem to be very long questions to read through?
Yeah, these questions are wordy. They are very wordy and sometimes confusing, especially when they give you two correct answers and tell you to choose the best one. It just get you lost.
It's true. It's a little bit of a challenge.
I tried my best, and it can be very wordy.
Well done. Congratulations.
But I made it anyway.
This is when I think just when it really gets down to Security Plus, knowing your content is great. But I think it helps if people can get a little bit more experience or practice with how CompTIA asks those questions. The Security Plus exam asks questions in a very different way than they do on the A Plus exam, for instance. So it's helpful if you're ready for that. Yeah,
I actually studied. I went back 2-3 years back and studied those questions, those Security Plus questions you have from 2017 up to 2019. And I did a little bit of jumping around the internet, doing mock tests here and there, and the book, other videos, and just a little bit of everything. And that was really, really helpful. And if you really understand the material, no matter how to word these questions, you will just have some little knowledge and try to pick what really they're talking about. So it was really helpful. Yeah, those questions and all the videos you have were very, very helpful.
It's great advice. It's advice I often give on these study groups is it's never really one thing. And I think your strategy was a good one. You got books, you got videos, you got Q&A, you did some hands-on. You tried to get as much coverage of those things as you possibly could. And there's a lot of content out there. And you're right. If you know the content, really it's not going to matter how they ask the question. You'll be able to hone in on the answer. And it sounded like it worked for you.
So I'm excited. This is my third certification in 12 months. I had my A plus back in November of last year, and this May I had my Net Plus, and since then I've been studying for my Security Plus. So I'm so excited that I got all my three certifications. Really excited.
This is great. So what is the next step for you then? Now that you've got these three, is it working towards something specific, or is there a particular job that requires these things? What's next?
I'm actually looking for some security related job. I was actually in school shooting for a bachelor degree, but at the same time I realized that most of the employers always emphasize certification. So when I completed my associate, I decided to pause for at least a year to get all these certifications, because when you are in school, you don't have time to focus on these certification study because they require a little bit of attention.
Right.
So upon my graduation, I decided to pause and get my three certs. Now that I got them, I'm hoping to enter school in January to get for the last 2 years to get my bachelor.
Nice.
At the same time, I'm also looking out for a job. I'm actually working right now in a data center tech support position with one other tech company.
You are doing all the right things. You're filling in all those check marks, the formal education, the practical experience, the certifications. The only thing I'd recommend is go to some local user group meetings, although, there's only so much time in the day, I get it. But if you go to a Microsoft user group, Cisco user group, the more people you can start networking with now, the better things are going to be when you finally get those that second year done and you get that 4-year degree under your belt and go with those. So well done. Congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you so much. I have one question.
Sure.
This one is question. I've always been grappling with the idea of getting the VLAN to talk to each other. For example, if you have a VLAN, no other computer on other VLAN will talk to that computer, so they will all be in their own little box.
Yep.
I've been trying to have them talk to the router. I've been hoping to have a VLAN talk to the router and be able to get on the internet. So I searched around the internet and came across router on a stick, which I implemented and have those VLANs talk to the router. Now they can get on the internet, but the downside is that all of VLANs are now able to talk with one another, which I didn't really want to happen. I just want the VLAN to be confined within their own little group and not able to talk to other VLANs, but just get on the internet. But after implementing the router on the stick, I now see that other computers and other VLAN can talk to each other on the other VLAN. So
right.
I'm still thinking what to do about it.
This is where now you have to start layering on the security. So for those of you who haven't done this before, it's a great exercise to do in something like Cisco's free packet tracer. It's a good example of doing that. And router on a stick is the idea of having multiple VLANs on a switch and perhaps even having a routing functionality in a switch as well. We colloquially call these layer 3 switches, but in reality, there's a switch component and there happens to be a separate router component that's within the same chassis of that switch. And what we do is turn on a routing function so that VLANs that were originally segmented from each other can now route through that layer 3 routing function. But as you're mentioning, now all of the VLANs can connect to each other because by default, a router will add to its routing table all of the routes that it's directly connected to.
Yeah.
Which normally it's exactly what you would want.
That's what happens.
So now you have to start layering on different technologies. And a good example of doing that in a Cisco world is you start working with access control lists, ACLs, and being able to manage what IP addresses can communicate through those particular router interfaces with a router ACL in the router configuration of that particular, well, if it's router on a stick, it could be an external router or it could be one built into the switch itself. That's the next piece of that. If you really want to take it to its next infinite degree, when I was working with next generation firewalls, there were some customers that had a very large data center. There were multiple VLANs on the data center side and multiple VLANs on the user side. And some of these next generation firewalls would have 24 interfaces on the front of them, and they would plug in and use the firewall as a switch And instead of putting ACLs on each individual interface, they would simply put firewall rules on each individual interface, which added the extra components. They were able to filter on applications and filter on users, but it was effectively the same idea. They added a filtering mechanism on each interface, and the easy way to do that in something like Packet Tracer or on the switch itself or on the router itself is to do that with an ACL. Now you can control individual IP addresses, entire VLANs, entire IP subnets, and your control would be part of the ACL.
Okay. Well, yeah, that really makes sense. I've really been struggling with this. Like, okay, so I got you. That really makes sense.
That'll get you there. Try playing around with that in your Packet
Thank
Tracer.
You so much.
I want to thank you for
I'm
calling.
doing Packet Tracer actually. I'm using Packet Tracer actually.
Good. I think a lot of people should start doing more Packet Tracer when you want to get hands-on or figure out how are these technologies working, or how do I implement an ACL? There's a good opportunity to do it. Put together a router on a stick and see how well you can filter those things out. Thank you so much for calling. Congratulations on your A+ Network Plus and Security Plus as well.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Absolutely. Best of luck. Doing all the right things, by the way. Getting the formal education, getting the certifications, getting the practical experience. These are all fantastic. This is the way to do it. And then that last one I mentioned, kind of optional, but really can help you quite a bit, is meet some people in the industry. You're already doing a little bit of that because you work somewhere, but it's nice to know the people that are outside your particular area. For those of you in the chat room mentioning, yes, the phone lines are coming back with a busy signal because the lines are full. But we are as people are, we're going through these, you're welcome to call in. I think we've already filled up the other line coming in. So let's get to one of these on the 215 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Charles, and I'm calling from Philadelphia.
Hey, Charles. What can we do for you?
Well, Professor Messer, I actually sent you an email a couple months ago. I saw some corrections on one of your test exams that I purchased, and I was so happy at your quick and prompt responses, and I just want to thank you because I also have passed my Security Plus.
Nice.
I passed it within the last 2 months, and here we are. I mean, I saw your email for the study group, and I just wanted to list it in because it's just you're making an impact. You're making an impact to the industry and everything all together, and I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
What you're doing is just good.
Well, you did the hard part, which was actually going through the questions. Whenever somebody sends me a notice saying, "Oh, there's something you typed in wrong," my first response is absolutely, I probably typed something in wrong because I'm very good at missing a copy or paste somewhere. You notice I try to get those fixed as quickly as possible, so I'm very quick to put new revisions out of these things, which is the easy thing to do with a digital product. But when you can identify in a question that something isn't quite right, that's when you know you're probably doing pretty well with understanding the technology. So well done with that piece. Now that you've got the Security Plus, I'll kind of ask the same question I asked the other caller, which was, is this to get a particular job that you're working towards? Is it a part of a strategy of something larger you're working on? What is it that's driving you towards that end?
Well, currently I've been working in help desk position for the last 2 years.
Yep.
And I guess I just have this self-drive for more. I want more. You know, I know that from day to day or call to call, doing the role of the help desk, I know I'm helping people out. I just feel like there's more that I can do. There's more that I can do to impact everything that's going on. Not just from one call to another, but possibly, looking at different areas and different issues, and kind of it's very hard to explain, but that's kind of what I want to do, and that's why I've got this drive. I've got the network. I've got my A+, my Network Plus, my Security Plus, and so here I am.
For me, it was always curiosity.
For that.
I started out as kind of a lower level than a help desk kind of job, where I would effectively deliver printer cables and deliver memory, and occasionally I'd be required to install the memory or install the new hard drive that I was delivering or install the printer cable that I was delivering. Definitely not high-end technical requirements of any kind. But the thing that always drove me was curiosity. Like, how does that work? How did these things fit together? The first time I saw a protocol analyzer, it was one made by Network General. It was their sniffer analyzer product that actually showed you the packets going across the network. And for me, that was the moment where I moved from corporate help desk and realized, whoa, there's something really interesting going on this piece of wire that I had no idea was happening. I need to know as much as I can know about all of those things. And I think that's one of the great things about technology is there's not an upper level. There's you get to go as hard and as fast and as high as you would like to go because the opportunities are out there. So that's one of the things that I think is great about getting these certifications, because sort of our mantra here is, how do people get a job or get a better job? Now, obviously, certification is not the only thing that does that, but it's a great enabler. It's a great curiosity enabler. It's a great thing that employers like to see. And I think it's a good way for people to start the progress of moving up or moving along and finding the thing they really want to do. So congratulations on your Security Plus.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I did have one question.
Oh, sure.
And this may be a question that may help some other studiers as well. One trouble I always had when I was studying for my Security Plus is all the different acronyms and 4-letter acronyms and 3-letter acronyms.
Yep.
And there's kind of an overwhelming amount of information to take in. Is there a way, or how do you kind of separate and go through, and is it just memorization? Is there a way that you kind of categorize them to make sense of it all, I guess?
For me,
I always have trouble with it.
I have to do the same thing in multiple ways for it to finally take a solid hold in my brain. So whenever I tell people, and the 4 things that you really need to do to study for these certifications, I always tell people, get a good video series, get a good book, get plenty of hands-on, get some good Q&A. And I have to do all 4 of those things. The thing that probably works best for me is the hands-on piece, but I kind of need the foundation before I do the hands-on. Otherwise, I'm going through a lab and it says, type this in. I type it in, I hit enter, but I don't know what I just did. I'm blindingly typing what it's telling me. So I kind of need some precursor to the lab, and that's where the book and the video come in, because books can teach you more detail in a shorter space because of the type of media that you're using. That's how a book works. The video part is one that gives you a demonstration of someone doing it. It teaches in a different way. And then for me, it's the hands-on. Being able to type things in and use those acronyms in a real-world type scenario are the things that solidify it with me. And then if I know it, maybe I'll go through the Q&A and see if I really remember what I just did. So it's not just any one thing. It's a combination of those things. But for me, I think I can hear the synapses firing when I get to the hands-on, because I say, oh, that's how that works. I can lay it out on a packet tracer and send traffic across the network and freeze time and have it go one hop at a time and watch the packet go back and forth and look at the protocol decode as it's doing it and realize, oh, that's how that's working. Now I understand, and I can apply that to other things. That's my process. And that's probably why I tell people when I take a certification exam, it takes me a much longer for me to finally be ready to take the exam, because I try not to take a lot of shortcuts with that. I'm really using the certification. In most cases, when I was doing certification exams, it was for really understanding what I needed to know, not just to be able to have the cert at the end of it. So it took me a long time to go through it. Your mileage may vary, your purposes may be different than mine, but I think the combination of ingredients is probably very similar.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. I ended up using mostly was your video guides. I watched through every single one of them, whether it was on a break or I had free time, and it took a couple months to kind of go through and kind of, it was more background and passive sort of listening. You became something that, oh, I've got a few minutes before bedtime. Let's go ahead and put on a Professor Messer video. Let's learn about XYZ objective. And nearer to my test date, that was when I had gone to the study group, done the QAs, and then actually did the practice exams. And I ended up doing all 4 practice exams the week before my exam, kind of crammed a whole bunch of information, focused on exactly which questions I missed, and then ended up using that gap in my knowledge to actually pass the exam, I suppose. So,
well, since I kind of have you,
that was my process.
I kind of have you trapped on the phone line. So for my own personal gratification, I finished that practice exam book about a month and a half ago. So now people are finally starting to use it. They're going to take their exams. You're a good example of that. Did you find that the practice exam book was one that was able to help you understand more about the style or the writings of the exam questions? Did you find that it was something that helped remember some of the things you were working on? How did you use that book?
Oh, absolutely. So the type of questions, the way that you ask it is not just define this term. It's how do we use these terms? And that definitely mirrors exactly what you're saying on the exam. The exam is not just the asking you to define some terms, it's asking you how do you use these terms in an environment that, based on this context, which of these would we be using? You have to understand not just the definition of the terms and what the acronyms stand for, but you have to understand actually what is it for? What is the purpose of each algorithm or what have you.
I think that's a good way to approach it, too.
I found that.
Well, congratulations on your Security Plus. I'm going to get to these other calls, but let us know how it goes with the process you go through next and find out where things are going to go from this point on. And thanks for sending me the notes about what you found in the book, too. I think it helped everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. That's always helpful, of course, to be able to get feedback from you. It's one of the things that whenever I work through these and I'm trying to find out what do I create, how quickly can we get these revisions out, they go out very quickly because I want you to have the most accurate pieces of this, to have all of those things there. Let's see how we can go this next call at 404 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Mike from Atlanta.
Hey, Mike, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so I took the Security Plus about 2-3 weeks ago. I got 600 on it.
600,
and
so close.
I had, so when I first started studying, the first thing that caught me off guard were the performance questions. And all the practice tests I did before, I did not see those at all.
Oh, really? So you had no idea
right
those were
off the
coming?
bat, I got no idea, and so I just found your videos, and I had been studying your videos. I got your notes, the questions, and I have some other questions for different websites, even some that I bought. And so I guess at what level, would one feel that they're ready to take it? Is it possible to study too much?
I won't say it's possible to study too much. Of course, there is a time constraint when you start studying and spend. You don't want to spend months of this trying to figure out the nuance of every single thing that's listed on the exam objectives. There is a kind of a foundation that is expected from the exam objectives, and I try to hit that foundation in my videos. So if you watch through a video and maybe read through a Security Plus book, I think most Security Plus books are pretty good at giving you just the right amount of depth for each one of those topics and what you'll need to know. But as the last caller said, and what you probably saw in the exam, above and beyond the performance-based question surprise, is that the questions will combine different topics together. There will be a paragraph of multiple sentences of things you have to read. Sometimes, like the one we did today, there's even a little bit of log or code or something you have to look at. And then finally, you have to answer the question. You could spend a lot of time reading through these questions before you're ever able to get to the answers to try to figure out what it happens to be. So there's almost a strategy for test taking that goes beyond just knowing the content, but knowing what to expect on the exam. It's disappointing, and it's got to be frustrating when you sit down for the exam and you get these performance-based questions you were not ready for, and you're probably thinking, how many of these things am I going to get? Is this the whole exam? Is I'm just going to have one of these? There's 90 of these on the exam? I can only imagine. So, but the good part, go ahead.
No, I would say the one that really caught me off guard was I had to configure a.
Well, we don't want to say too much because you did sign an agreement with the with this that says you aren't going to talk too much about the exam. So we don't want to say too much about what happened on the exam or what the details were. But one of the things that I think is a good part of what you did on the exam is that the number, the 600 is really very, very close to what you would need to pass the exam. You're only 150 points away to be able to get the score that you need to pass that certification exam. So the good part is you kind of went into this first one a little bit blind, not knowing what you were going to hit. Now that you know exactly how the exam is set up, you know the structure, you probably will go to the same place to test. You know, the mechanics you got down now at this point. So you can kind of put those off to the side. The real key now is really taking home all of those topics and really understanding them. I would recommend you use the exam objectives to do that. Go through every single bullet on the exam objectives. Do I know this? Can I explain that exam objective to someone else? If you have a significant other or someone who can tolerate you for short periods of time, then you can explain to them what that bullet happens to be. And then okay, I can check that one off, or maybe I want to circle that one. That one did not go as well as I thought. Let's go to the next one, and we can keep going down that list. Now with Security Plus, that's a very big list. It's an enormous list. The fact that people are able to do this in a matter of months is surprising to me very often. But if you go through and you're just take a block at a time, take a chunk at a time. That's why I made my videos so short, like 6 minutes, 10 minutes. You're able to take that chunk of data, go through those topics, check them off, and then go to the next thing. You will eventually get through the whole thing and be able to do that piece. That's what I would recommend doing, and doing as much Q&A as you can. Once you feel like you've got those topics, Q&A is really going to bring it home for you.
Definitely, and I've gone through 2 of your tests, and I did better on test 3, but I'm pretty sure I passed when I calculated it up, but I'm actually doing exam 1 today.
Perfect.
But that's a good recommendation for the exam points, though.
I think that'd be a good barometer.
Thank you so much for all your videos and all you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling. Thanks, Mike. That's one I think can help anybody. If you're in a situation where you're trying to, am I ready for the exam? That was a big reason I wrote the Q&A book, because that's the question people would ask me. Am I ready to take this exam? And I would say you should take some really good Q&A to really see if you're ready. And then they would say, well, I can't find any good Q&A to see if I'm ready. So I thought, we need some good Q&A. Otherwise, how are you going to know when you walk in the exam that you're going to be ready to do that? That's always a challenge. And so it's a combination of things. It doesn't have to be my Q&A you get. We're talking about mine just because I happen to be here and I have the book in front of me. But anywhere you can find high quality Q&A, please go do that. I've often said, I don't care how you pass the exam. I don't care whose content you use to pass the exam. I want you to pass it. So find the one that works for you. Different books work in different ways. They have different authors with different voices. Different videos have different ways that they teach. You may want like some video series over a different one. The important part is getting that certification and then being able to use that to get a job or get a better job. That's the real key on my side, is to make that happen. If I can be part of that, that's fantastic too. Let's go to 561. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor Master. This is Ed calling from Miami Lake.
Hey, Ed. Good to hear from you again. What can we do for you?
Well, I have a question for you. This is basically something you discussed today on today's show, our email clients. And I was wondering if you could suggest a good email client that provides encryption and digital signature functionality. I was using a Thunderbird and had a Enigmail add-on, but I just recently upgraded Thunderbird to the latest version, and it broke the add-on.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for a new client now, and I wonder if you could make a, have a suggestion.
For Windows, I really can't. I'm a Mac OS user, so I never get into the Windows side of things. I have a number of different things I do on my computer to do the encryption part of it. I use both the GPG tools that are available, and I think GPG tools is one that also has a Windows executable that may work with other Windows clients. So that's one of the places I would recommend you look, is with the GPG tools. On my side with Mac OS, I use the mail client that's built into Mac OS. That's what I use to send my monthly CEUs out. And I've integrated that with a macro program in Mac OS and GPG tools. So if somebody sends that email, I have it effectively pull the email information out that people have put in. It writes a new email with everything that they've wanted. It signs the message, and then I can look it over before sending it out. And that's a nice integration for me. There's also, of course, the option, you're looking at a client that would run on a local machine, and there's some great reasons to run a local mail client. But I do have people that I talk with, and a lot of the things I do day to day, I use Gmail. That's another client. There is a Gmail add-on that I use. I know you weren't asking about this, but since we're on the topic, I'll at least talk about it. And the things I use. The extension name specifically, I want to get it right, so I'm typing it in on my side and trying to stall while I do this. The extension name is up on my screen. I have 20,000 extensions in my Gmail that are not turned on, but they're, of course, stuck in here. The mail-velope, instead of envelope, it's mail-velope. That is the extension I use that uses OpenPGP. I just stuck my key in there. And that's what I use to do my asymmetric communication in my email client to have that happen. But for Windows, maybe some folks in the chat room would have some ideas. People who are listening in, if you want to put comments on the video, you're saying, I use this email client with this particular extension for any type of asymmetric encryption. And this works very good for me. We'd love to get your feedback and your input from that as well.
Yeah, you're saying the mail-velope is an email add-on or a plugin?
It's an extension for Chrome that integrates with Google Mail so that I can receive Google Mail messages, and it will, if it notices that the message happens to be one that's encrypted, it will go out, grab their public key, bring it back so I can reply to their message. I, of course, put my private key in there so I can decrypt the messages that are sent to me. As I mentioned earlier, there's pluses and minuses, of course, to doing things like that in a browser-based email system. But that's the one I use kind of day-to-day for those types of things.
I have just one other thing that I'd like to discuss with you is just a quick mention.
Sure.
I was reading an article in the New Yorker that I thought was pretty interesting, and kind of shed lights on the dangers of peer-to-peer networking. I don't know if you remember LimeWire, but that was pretty popular, maybe about 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently people were, when they were downloading LimeWire and doing the configurations initially, they didn't really know what they were doing, and they were opening up their hard drive files to, basically exposing personally identifiable information and sensitive information also.
Oh, yeah.
And so the article kind of covers what was going on, and they used a term called doxxing, which I had never heard before.
Sure. And
basically, it's publishing of private information on the internet, usually with a malicious intent. So, anyway, this company was trying to get into cybersecurity by exploiting LimeWire, and they were setting up virtual nodes so they could put these clients in all these different nodes and get a big picture of what was going on in LimeWire. And then they were looking at the search terms and finding, sensitive information. And then they would get that information and also get the person's IP address. and they were using that to try to further their cybersecurity company by providing protection, and it was all based on LimeWire.
This is
So
something
I was just wondering if you
researchers
could make
do.
a comment on.
I have sort of have two comments about this, because this is one that goes back to I was talking earlier in the study group about when I would demonstrate these next generation firewalls. And right now we're talking about, I started at the next generation firewall company 10 years ago. So this was back at the very beginning of next generation firewalls. I was working at Palo Alto Networks, which nobody had heard of. It was a brand new technology. Nobody had anything else like it. And I would plug into networks. And one of the biggest problems we were dealing with back then was peer-to-peer on these corporate networks, because the exact thing was happening that you mentioned, which was people would install these clients and they would effectively open up all of these different parts of their hard drives, which had company information, people's salary information. Somebody from HR would do this. They were thinking they were just downloading music, and in reality, they were effectively turning all of the machines in their company into a server that anyone could access. And it was a tremendous problem. And so one of the things that we were able to do is plug into the network, and we could instantly see everybody on the network who was using, instantly see everyone on the network using any type of peer-to-peer, what peer-to-peer it was, what they were logged in as on the local network. And so we'd have a list of 20 people immediately. And I mentioned that story earlier about people immediately leaving the room and saying, you're gonna have to wait a second, because they jotted down all these names and ran out of the room to turn these people's machines off. Literally just go up to it and turn it off and tell them they couldn't turn this on anymore. It was a tremendous issue. Now, the controls around applications and security and peer-to-peer and some of the technologies have changed over those 10 years. It still is a significant problem, but it's nowhere near what it used to be back in that time from 10 years ago, primarily because there's just so many other ways people listen to their music now. I think music really drove a lot of that peer-to-peer. And these days, there's other ways. Of course, BitTorrent came along and changed the way people transfer data as well. And of course, that's a whole nother set of challenges. The other thing you mentioned was doxing, which is a tremendous problem for anybody on the internet. I think a lot of our legislative entities in different states and at the federal level have finally gotten to the point where they're creating some rules, regulations, statutes against doxing and being malicious with people's private information. But in some cases, it's accidental. A good example of this is one that AOL did. AOL is technically still around. They were purchased, of course, I think by Verizon. But back in, I forget which year it was, they took 20 million web queries that were made on AOL, and they said what they did was anonymized them. So they took out people's IP addresses, they took out people's login names, and just left the searches. And what researchers were able to do is, even though we didn't know who it was, each search still had a unique ID associated with it. So even though it didn't say Professor Messer on the search, it had ID number 0042. And every time you saw ID number 0042, that was me, although it was anonymized. Well, the researchers went through the list of what people were looking for and managed from that to find the name, address of who was doing the search. And they actually went up to these people on television, came up to the cameras and went up to this nice, sweet old lady's house and knocked on the door and said, "Are you the person that was searching for blah, blah, blah?" And she goes, "Yeah." "How do you know what I was searching for?" Well, because they were finally able to extrapolate this information based on what originally people thought were anonymous web searches. So web searches are really, that was just the sort of the beginnings of this. The same thing happens if you want to search for browser fingerprints. That's another good way to identify an individual device. There's so many different other examples of that you can find out there as well. But it is a significant problem. Keeping control of PII, personally identifiable information, is such a challenge for security professionals. That's another good reason people were using these next generation firewalls, so that they could at least get a handle on what are people transferring. Are they putting Excel spreadsheets in the emails that are going in and out? Are they visiting websites we don't think they should be visiting? If you have no visibility, how are you ever going to find out? And that's really just the first step. You then have to be able to find some way to control it.
Yeah, you just mentioned that browser fingerprinting, and I guess I'm not really sure, what that's all about. Other than I believe they look at what kind of softwares you have on your system. They try to get information on your system where they can then identify you based on all these different things that you have loaded with different types of software, maybe even hardware that you have on your system. Is that correct?
Not probably not. Well, it could actually be some specific hardware component to it, but the operating system you use communicates over the network using certain types of protocols that are unique to that operating system. So if I use Chrome in a Windows machine and Chrome on a Linux machine, even though I may be going to the exact same website, I'm typing in the exact same thing in the URL, there are minor changes, minor differences in at the bit level of the network traffic coming through that is different on both of those systems. And some of it is based on the extensions you have loaded. Some of it is based on the version of the browser that you're using. Some of it is based on the operating system that you're using. But by doing that and knowing which one of those bits of information coming across the network to look at, you can build a fingerprint. Now, obviously, you can't look at that and say, oh, that's Professor Messer. But now that you have the fingerprint, you can then compare that fingerprint, just like a real fingerprint, to any other web session that you might capture somewhere else on the internet. And if those two things match, you can say with a particular percentage of verification, that is the same person, or at least the same machine at the same browser that is doing that. It is remarkable. When I ran through some fingerprint, it was scary when I did it, and I realized, wow, if I go to another website and perform the same thing, you could easily piece together that it's me. I'm thinking I'm in incognito mode, that nobody knows me. I'm over a VPN. Nope. I can piece those two things together in a second. Really remarkable what those researchers were able to do. Really scary.
Right. That's why I use a plugin called Canvas Fingerprint Block on my Chrome, which hopefully, deters that, or at least blocks some of that information from them gathering intel on me.
It is a constant race. It is a constant, got to stay ahead of where it's going and keep going, keep going in the race, keep trying to stay ahead of it, keep using those types of extensions, and you'll be able to at least keep some level of privacy along those lines on the internet.
Well, thank you for your time, Professor Messer. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Ed. Best of luck. That's always a challenge, though. How do you can you stay private on the internet? Can you? Let's not even get into, is the government maintaining Tor exit nodes? There's another good one for you to search through. That sounds like a crazy talk. That sounds like I'm being too over the top with these types of topics, but they're actually real things. These were things we didn't think were a big deal until suddenly at AT&T, we found they put in a fiber tap and the government was simply collecting every packet that went across the internet. At the time, we thought, well, that's conspiracy theory, until we found the room that actually had it in there. And there's the tap, and there's the machine, and there's the hard drives. That's remarkable. So these are things we have to think about if we want to maintain some type, or at least a certain level of privacy on the internet. That's always the challenge. It's a constant race going forward. To the 631 area code caller, thank you for holding for so long. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I appreciate it. My name is Melvin. I'm calling from Largo, Florida.
Oh, well, another Florida. Thank you for calling.
I'm calling from my cell phone. That's why the 631.
Gotcha.
Quick question. I've been in the field for I've been in the IT field before A+ came around. So just to give you an idea how long I've been in the field, and I'm getting my Security Plus because I applied for a position, and I'm a little different. I applied for a position that I need the certification, but I already have the experience.
Right.
So it kind of worked out. I still need the certification to start. So I'm looking to go for my test next month. The question that I have is that I've been hearing from some people, and I don't know if this is true, that I know some people that got 2 vouchers to take the Security Plus exam.
Right.
And if you fail the first time, you can take it with now, you could take, use the other voucher to take it. Now, is there a particular price for this?
There is.
From what I know, it's like $300 to take the exam.
Right.
But that's all I know.
It's something out of the CompTIA, that is their marketplace. That's the term I was looking for. The CompTIA marketplace, if you're buying your vouchers directly from them, and they may do this with third parties as well, but I'm not a CompTIA reseller, so I don't know the details of this. But when you buy your certification vouchers on the marketplace, you have the option when you're buying these to buy just a single voucher. Maybe you feel good about it. You're going to walk in, you're going to pass the first time. You don't need any type of insurance whatsoever. We're just going to buy the voucher. But another thing they sometimes will offer, I'm not actually seeing it immediately on their website, but there's the voucher for the one for $339. They do have a basic bundle. In fact, I'll bring this up. This is neither sort of here nor there, but they have if you just buy the voucher here in the U.S., $339 on the CompTIA website. If you buy their basic bundle, they have a $499 bundle that includes the voucher, but it includes also this exam retake. So you can retake the exam. It's not a voucher you can give to someone else to say, go take your Security Plus. It's still associated with you. It would be used as a retake voucher if you don't pass the first time. And they bundle that with their ebook, which is the official CompTIA Security Plus self-paced study guide. I'm not familiar with their books, but that's something apparently they bundle along with it, and you can get all of those together. So it's just an offering from CompTIA that they give kind of as just insurance. You're not paying twice as much for the voucher, but if you're just not quite comfortable enough and you'd like to take some of the pressure off, that may be a good way to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard of a few people doing that, but I'm like, I haven't seen that, so I want to kind of double check with you. And I'm the same way. I like to do a combination of books and study material and videos, things like that. I will say from my experience taking some other CompTIA exams that are now retired, I've taken the healthcare IT exam, which dealt with healthcare and hospitals, and I took the Mobility Plus. That is where I went through because I was doing help desk and I did TCP and stuff. So I went into more of like a niche career and went to mobility. So I do a lot of BlackBerry and mobile administration.
Wow.
But I wanted to get my Security Plus to have, because like I said, I just got a government job and they need that for everybody, no matter what you do.
That's right. It's a checkbox.
So, and that's the thing. Yeah. If you're looking to do, I could give 2 words of advice for people starting into the field. Number one, when it comes up to the CompTIA test, and I can only speak for CompTIA test because that's all I have, what you will study is definitely not word for word that's going to be on the test. CompTIA wants to make sure that you understand the stuff. There have been, matter of fact, the 2 times I went in for those 2 tests, I was shocked and taken back by what I learned. And then when I took the test, I always left the testing facility like, what happened? Even though I did pass the test, So, and I'm like, that's one thing. Another thing is, if you can get the experience before you get the certification, that's great. But also go for the certs, and get that going. And like I said, with me, it was different. I got experience, but now I need the certs to get the more higher paying jobs.
It's one of those things I always hear people say,
that.
And you see it written on the internet all the time that, you don't need the certification. Experience trumps any certification you would get. Therefore, why go through the certification? Except in your example that you're giving, it's actually not true. You have the experience. You're very familiar with the technology, but the employer requires you to have that checkbox to have the certification. Sometimes that happens with those things. And I think it's one of those. If I had to give you a recommendation, though, as somebody who has really gone through the questions on the exam and understands kind of the way they ask them, if you were thrown by the healthcare exam and the mobility, the Security Plus will definitely throw you. Find some good examples, sample exams that you can take prior to walking in the room so that you kind of understand the depth and scope and the language and the sort of the terminologies they use in those questions, because they are different in how they ask Security Plus questions versus some of the other exams that you'll run into. Gotcha.
And I will say that it is somewhat true. I mean, you can still get into the field with no certs. That's how I started. But the problem is you have like a roof. You can't get past that.
Right.
As far as salary is concerned. That's the whole thing. So you can get into the IT field with no certifications. If you have the experience, great, but you will not get the more higher paying jobs that you would need to get into.
Sometimes that's what you run into. I often say there's no limit in IT, but you still have to get those things to move up the ladder and to get those higher paying jobs and those higher level technical jobs as well. Either way, you're covered. So I think you're on the right track, Melvin. Keep doing what you're doing. I think you'll be able to ace that Security Plus.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your help.
Thanks for calling. That's always good, though. If you've got some experience, and I certainly did before I took my A+ certification, for example, I was great with desktops and operating systems. That's what I did all day, every day. I had some of the industry manufacturer certifications at the time. For instance, Compaq. I had Compaq certifications. I want to say it's Acer at the time, Acer certifications. And I started studying for the A+, very different than what these other manufacturers were expecting. So always good to go through that process. What score did I get? That was way back in the day. I don't take certification exams anymore so that I can talk freely about the exams. But the first A+ exam, probably didn't do that great. I did okay. It wasn't the very bare minimum. And then I took the one after that. I probably took I took the 600 series exam and I took the 700 series exam. But by the time I took the 700 series, I had already created a 600 series course. So the 700 series exam, I did pretty good. I still missed some questions because I'm apparently incompetent with some of these things, but I got through it pretty high numbers on that one. But I wrote the course, so I was pretty good. But I took that one so that I could write a better 700 series course. But at that point, it was easier for me to not take them so that I could do even things like this online and talk freely without knowing that I'm violating any contractual agreement with CompTIA. So that's the balancing act that I always had to have, and now I don't have a balancing act. What year was that? I don't know. It was the 600 series and 700 series. So we're talking, we're at the 1000 series now. So subtract 3 years for every series before that. So the 900 series was 3 years ago. The 800 series 3 years before that. So you're talking 9-10 years ago for the 700 series, I guess. Is that right? Did I do my math right? Somewhere in there. Probably just before that, actually, now that I'm really thinking about it. It's a long time ago. That's what it was. Back to the phones where we can talk about something other than my age at 876 area code caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, you're breaking up just a little bit. We'll see if we can get your question in there. Let's give it a shot.
Okay, yeah, I said that my name is Selvin. I'm actually calling from Jamaica.
Oh, well, thank you for calling from Jamaica. What can we do for you?
Yes, I was looking at the certifications. I wanted to ask a particular question. I know I've been searching the internet. Is there first of all, will sitting the A+ and Network Plus be beneficial to before sitting the Security Plus exam?
I would say it would help, but I have a lot of people that come to my website and their first certification that they're taking in IT is Security Plus. And they're starting right with Security Plus. They have no experience in IT. They've not taken the A+. They've not taken the Network Plus. In fact, when I took my first CompTIA certification, it was the Security Plus as well. In fact, my order, I took the Security Plus, then I took the Network Plus, then I took the A+. I did them backwards to what CompTIA says you could do. But like that last caller said, in the United States, the U.S. federal government, especially the Department of Defense, requires every IT person to have Security Plus or at least a similar level exam as the one that is their base exam to be able to have a job with the DoD. So one of the very common ones is Security Plus. So a lot of people come to the site and take it. Would it be easier if you already had Network Plus under your belt? It might be a little bit easier. It might speed up just a little bit, but not that much, I don't think. There is not a lot of overlap between the Network Plus and Security Plus, and there's practically no overlap between the A Plus and Security Plus. I think you could start with the Security Plus as your first certification. If that's your particular goal and there's a particular job you're working for and there would be a benefit for you having Security Plus, and you wanted to start there, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Fabulous. Professor, I know that you have a lot of experience in the field. In terms of timeline, what would be your recommended study timeline? You spoke about it earlier that you had immense sort of respect for persons to complete the exam in such short timeline. So I gather that you would have about a particular timeline based on probably per hour, per day, time between months, weeks, whatever. I don't know. But what do you see as the ideal timeline to prepare yourself for an exam like this? Someone with no experience. You can give me the tiers, experience versus no experience, etc.
Got it. It really differs between person to person, as you might expect. Some people learn the content better. They're more comfortable with it. Some people might have a little bit more knowledge in technology, and that helps them along. I would say the average for most people taking the Security Plus certification is probably in the 2 to 3 month time frame. Now, if you wanted me to take the Security Plus exam from the bottom level, let's say I had no knowledge of IT and it's somebody like me that was taking Security Plus, it takes me a long time to take these exams. So if I accelerate things for me, I might be able to squeeze it into 3 months. I'm more of like a 6-month studier. It takes me a long time. I have different things going on in my life. I have responsibilities that are outside of this room that I have to take care of. There are certain other things that I have to do. Sometimes I'm a slow reader when I get to the technology because I really want to understand it, and I like to chew on it. I like to really think about it. I like to do more hands-on with it. I try to get into I am the kind that really does get into the weeds with this stuff. But I think most people who are just you're going by the exam objectives, you're learning what you need to know, you're watching some videos, you're reading a book, you're doing some hands-on, and you're getting some Q&A. I would say the average of somebody with no experience is probably in the 3-month time frame with sort of an average amount of studying. And that's really the difference, is that it's hard to tell someone how many hours a day should I study to meet that 3 months, because everybody learns at a different pace and everybody understands things differently. So it's hard to tell. All I can really do is go with that 3-month average. And I think that's a good one to kind of base your studies on as well.
All right, my final question. Sorry to keep you up.
Sure.
I know you've been on the line for quite a while. The CompTIA resources, they seem to be a little bit expensive because they bundle a lot of packages.
Yeah.
However, the CompTIA resources, one would think that because it's CompTIA's exam, they would have the best resources. Probably it's a political question, but the CompTIA resources in terms of your view and how would you rank? Because I'm actually looking at their Cert Master right now, which seems to be a simulated environment and stuff like that. We do exams that's going to simulate the look and feel of CompTIA's exam. How would you rate their bundle versus, for example, your bundle?
Well, I will say first off that I am not a CompTIA partner. I have worked with CompTIA in the past. They use some of my videos in some of those CompTIA training courses that they have. So there is at least, and I know people that work there, and they're very nice people that work there, and I enjoy working with them. I have not, though, personally gone through their books. I've not personally gone through their training programs online. So I would be speculating to even say, here's what I think of the quality of that. CompTIA didn't used to create their own study materials. They used to just rely on third parties to do that. It's only in the past 2 years or so that they have decided we're going to start creating our own content here, and we're going to work with that. When we brought up earlier, for instance, the ebook that they offer for Security Plus, there were mixed reviews in the chat room of people who had them and said, I didn't like it very much. Other people were okay with it that I've talked to in the past. So I think it's one of those things, and I recommend this with a lot of people, that you go to Amazon, you go to that website, they have that look inside feature, and I tell people to read through a chapter of as many different books as you can to get an idea of how that author writes, because some authors have a better connection with you than others. And I think finding the right tone and the right structure and the right feel is probably just as important as finding a book that has all of the right content in it as well. Because most of the books have the right content. It's really about finding the one that fits with you the best. And I would not say that CompTIA has the market on that one yet. I think they have more work to do. I think there are advantages to going with some of their content, but I don't see that as the be-all, end-all at this point. They probably need to do a little more work.
All right. Thanks a lot, Professor.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's always a challenge, though, is to find the right book, find the right videos. You'd have to do a little bit of research. This is not one where you just go to the checklist. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. I'll take that one, and you're done. You kind of have to find the right mix for what you're doing. And CompTIA hasn't. They're just getting started with this too. They're feeling it out. Now they've purchased some very good content creators. So maybe the things they're coming out with will fit best for what you're doing. But I would find a demo of that and read through it and see if it is the case. There's got to be one on their website. I'm assuming there's one on their website. Maybe a separate book, a third party they publish. Let's go to 303 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Kaba. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay, I was listening to the Security Plus thing because I subscribe it. But basically, I'm new in the field too. I just want to extend my background if you can give me a help what to do. I started doing a computer 2 years ago. So one of my friends that help desk support. And he told me about it. I said, I want to go to college. I want to do a degree. Then I don't really know what to do right now. That's what I want to think about computer. That's why I don't have no idea. The only thing I know about computer is to just get on the internet or the stuff. That's the way you can learn. So I studied for my, I went back to my school because I have an associate in health science. So I went back to the same school, community college, and then I took the A+ course. So then I came back and I started study. I went to take the test. I failed it. So during my research, then I find out you and also lab sim. So I was doing some of your exam course, and I was studying on lab sim. And I went to take again, and I passed. And then from the lab sim gave me like a 1 year subscription. So I studied with my N+ on my own. Then I went back in June. I passed the N+. So now I've been studying for the Security Plus, and I'm in school too at Wilmington University for Network Security Plus.
Nice.
I mean a computer network security, right? And then I've taken a lot of classes there, and I feel like when I study for my certification, I learn more than taking those classes at school. For the school, I do something today, I get A or B, and then I only do one time, and I move on to the next chapter. So now I was doing some research about the Security. I said, I'm going to take one semester off and focus on my Security Plus and get that, then go back to school and finish it up. Now I find these people on the internet, and they was telling me, like, I don't know if you heard about them. Their name is Next Gen, Full Stack Next Gen. They say they can help you out to get your Cisco CCNA for like $900. Then they will train you to get your network advanced security thing. Then they will help you to get a job. Once you get a job, all that program will be 4 to 6 months. Then once you get a job, you're gonna pay them like a 12% of the salary for the next 3 years.
Wow.
Then I was thinking about it. Yeah, okay, this is 12,000. So either it's gonna be 12,000 once you find your job. Say any job from like 40,000 to 50,000. So once you get your first job, they say you're gonna pay 12% of the salary. Then I was like, okay, I don't have no confidence in security field because even though I have my A+ and N+, I don't have a lot of hands-on experience. They said, now let's date. So, and then they said they was going to train me to that. And I said, okay, maybe I should just take a semester or 2 semesters off from school and then go to their program. Then I talk to the people. They say it might be a scam. And then I'll just care. So maybe I don't know if you heard about them or what's your advice is.
That's an interesting business model. It's one that I have heard before, but it's not a business model that's very common. So for those of you listening in, normally with people who are getting certifications, you would go take a training class. Maybe you're in a class that is a longer, some people go to a community college and for, a certain amount for a single class for a single semester, 3 credit hours, and they take an A+ or Network Plus or Security Plus. Then you go take the exam and you get your certification. Some people in the corporate world might compress that. I think a lot of people think that they can do what they call boot camps, which will try to cram the whole thing into a 5-day period or a 2-week period. I never recommend boot camp scenarios for this. For this particular model, this is an interesting one where they will take you through a longer form of training class. You're in there for a number of weeks or a number of months. But then at the end of it, when you get that security job, they want a cut of your salary for a certain amount of time. That is remarkable. That is a remarkable plan, a business model. It certainly is a trade-off, but it's sort of, in my mind, it's kind of asking people who don't have a lot of money or resources available to give a lot more money and resources back to this company on the backside. It seems to be, well, to use a security term, it seems to be a little asymmetric to me. It seems to be a little bit lopsided from my perspective, especially what I know about the Cisco certifications and the CompTIA certifications is that someone can go to the internet, spend the time, get a good book, watch some videos, do their hands-on with plenty of free resources, and have that available. But as people in the chat room are mentioning, this is not the only training to do this. There are other industries that do this type of thing. I was thinking of truck driving schools as well, have a similar model where they will train you up, but then you're going to have to pay them back on the back end, which is effectively what they're doing. It's not a scam. This is a contract that you are voluntarily agreeing to. It may not be, from a business perspective, the best financially, and that's something you'll have to balance out as to whether it makes sense to give someone this money on the back end, as long as they really do train you up on the front end. I think a lot of work needs to be done, research needs to be done into that company to really see what are the results of this. Give me some example of some people that have gone through this program. I would like to talk to them and find out more about what they did, just so you can really ask them, would you do it again? Was it worth the investment? Would you change something on the back end? It might be worthwhile, but it doesn't sound scammy offhand. It may sound a little bit more lopsided than I would be accustomed to, but depending on your financial situation, it might fit best for what you're trying to do. I think the key is getting that certification and getting the job, because once you get that first job in IT, you can use that job to move you to the next job. It really comes very easily after that point, relatively speaking. It's that first foot in the door that I find is one of the hardest parts of IT. So is it a company taking advantage of this? I don't know.
Okay, let me not cut you. Okay, that's what they say through the team. Because I talked to one person there. They say like they will walk you through the whole program and then like coach you. Like I say, a lot of people when they come to the IT field, they don't have the right people to lead them, and they will prepare you for your interview and everything. But my thing with money is not an issue. If I can, because I don't have, like I say, I study my own for A plus, N plus, and I'm studying right now for a Security plus, which I'm getting there. But it's just the hands-on and the confidence that I don't have, and they say they will try to walk you through that. If it's true, it could give me a job like $40,000 a year that pay 3 years of my salary. 12% of my salary, $12,000. For me, the money is not an issue. Is it legit? Is they tell the truth? Because I ask some other people, they say, well, people will promise you this thing, they're not going to achieve at the end. Or they just, because to start the whole program first, I get paid $900. That's to get the CCNA, the Cisco certification. Then once I get Cisco certification, I'll go to the advanced training. Then they also have their own certification. And after that, they say they have company in they have a building in San Jose, California, which is the option. They can go there for 5 days, just do a thing, and they will help you to get a job.
I think you're right. I think the things they're offering
are good things. I think being able to counsel someone through the process of creating a resume, helping them through the interview process, teaching them the things they need to learn to get these certifications, having the classroom environment, working with the real equipment, talking with other people in the industry. They ostensibly have a structure of employers set up that can talk to people coming out of the program. And there may be people who are in a situation where this is a perfect fit for getting them into IT that they didn't have previously. It is not the only path, of course, and we've talked about other paths here. It's a relatively unusual one for IT, but it's certainly not something that is off the mark for industry or getting people into an industry if it's the right fit for the things that you're doing. I would not discount it out of place, but I would highly recommend that you look at the other ways that people are getting into these roles to see if maybe one of those might be a better or a different fit that you might want to pursue first. There's certainly ways to do this without any or with very little financial outlay first. And then if that doesn't work out, maybe this is a good plan B.
Okay. And how do you verify this company is legit? Like because they have a people. If you want, I can just send you the link, and then because they have their own web full stack network engineer training. I can send the link or forward the link, and they can look at it maybe next month. Because I told them I'm like this semester is finishing in December 19. So for December 19, whatever they say, if it's true, I don't mind taking that one semester from school. Just try to get our hands on or stuff like that. So we all have 1 month. I can send you the link. I can take a look at it.
The best way that you want to impress me is to give me some references that I want to call people who've gone through the program. I want to have coffee with someone who's gone through the program that has a job in IT. I want to know how they worked through it. I want to know if they would do it again. I want to know what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. I would want to talk to people who've done this already. And if if the school can't provide that, then I would certainly be concerned. But it sounds like this is a school that may have those types of references available. And if that's the case, maybe you'd have a chance to talk with them about some of those things. That's what I would want to do, because I can't trust a website. I don't know if the website's really telling me, but people who've gone through the program, they'll be able to tell me. That's what I would recommend doing.
Okay.
I think it's.
They have those people. They have those people there, but I think, like you say, I'm just going to talk to them again if I can talk to those people, because they don't have the information. They have a people that they have the whole app, they have the links and click. There's like almost 10 people that went to a program, and some of them say they're still working for Google. But that information is not there to contact them. It's just like they put that link over there and then ask those people. So maybe, like I said, I'm going to call them again if I can talk to one of those people that went to the program and ask them questions instead of themselves. Because those people can be a paid actors too.
That would be something. Then you're really, if that's the scenario, then that's a whole different level of smoke and mirrors that you'd have to deal with. Like anything else, read your contracts, go through all of those things, make sure you're comfortable with it if something doesn't seem quite right with scenarios like this, it probably isn't quite right. And there's lots of other things you can do as an alternative. This is not the only way to get into IT. There's lots of ways to do it and ways that you could do it yourself relatively inexpensively. It depends on what way works for you. So that's knowing nothing else about that scenario, that's the kind of guidance I can give and kind of hope for the best and what I would expect to see in that.
Okay.
But I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. There's so many different options. I mean, there's classes you can take at the local community college. There's self-studies you can do. I mentioned sometimes people do these boot camps, which I think are awful, but people do them. And there's other companies that do this professionally, and that was a good example of one. So is it good or is it bad? Who's to say? Do your research, the buyer beware. Some people in the chat room asking, where am I a professor? In what school am I a professor? This one right here. This is the one that I am the professor at. Me teaching people on the internet is what I do. I don't work for a university or a school or any of that. That's I guess one of those weird things. That question does come up from time to time, though. No, I don't work for a university or a school or anything like that. This is what I do. Let's go to the next caller. Get through, if I can click the right buttons on my screen to get to the next caller. There we go. Hello, caller 619. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer. My name is Daniel Donahue. I'm calling from San Diego, California.
Oh, hi, Daniel. What can we do for you?
I just want to say I'm a big fan. Originally I used to live in Florida or Fort Lauderdale. So when you mentioned Florida, brings a lot of memories because
nice.
Because I came out here to San Diego because of the military.
Okay.
I just want to say I'm a big fan of yours. You're doing a great job. I just recently bought your is it Professor Messer, the Security Plus practice exam.
Oh, thank you.
I've been practicing with that.
Great.
And so I'm a big and I'll tell you, you're doing a good job to support for us personnel that wants to get involved with the security industry, especially with the Security Plus exams that been studying for, and I'm aiming to shoot early of next month for the Security Plus exam. So right now I'm studying. So I'm at the same time listening to you to the broadcast, and I don't know, it's just a big fan, and that's what I just wanted to tell you, dude.
Well, Daniel, I appreciate it. I always like to say I'm doing the easy part. You're the one that actually has to go take the exam and do the hard part. But we do have a lot of people in the military.
Man, these exams are hard.
This is something Security Plus, Department of Defense, I mentioned, is very big on getting that Security Plus as kind of a foundational exam. So it's great that I'm able to communicate and talk to them.
Yeah, and you're right about that because I was recently let go, unfortunately, because I worked for a company called SIC, and they got a contract where I needed to get the Security Plus exam within a month, and I could not obtain it. So I took exams twice, and then it sucked. And so I was recently let go because the contract, at the moment said that you need to have a certification. So I was like, oh man, and it's a good gig, but things happen and just not meant to be, I guess. But right now I'm working at it to get my certification and then get back into, hopefully back to my company and my old position, So, but DOD is definitely, they are gearing to have a lot of people to be certified, especially Security Plus.
Good for you. You will always run into these things in your career, and I've certainly run into my fair share of bad decisions and circumstances that are beyond your control, that at the time I thought this was the most horrible thing that could have ever happened to my career. How will I ever bounce back from this? And then you end up doing it. So it's really about you more than it is about them. And I'm glad you're continuing with your studies to get that Security Plus. Once you get through that exam and pass it, please send me a note. I'd love to hear the results.
I will, man, because I'm telling you, it's like a bucket list. It's my quest. I could do other type of work, but I'm sold to get back to my old position. And the thing is to get that certification, to get that monkey off my back, because that gig, not having it cost me a good job, and I was like, damn. And so it's like a quest, As soon as I get it, I would email you or call you like through this position. I'll let you know, hey, Professor, I passed it. And I'm using your notes, and then going through your all the Security Plus student study guides and all the information I have. So yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Best of luck, Daniel. I appreciate the call. You're going to do fine. Anybody who bounces back like that, only a short term. It's only going to be a short term for you. You're going to get that exam certification done, and it's off to bigger and better things. It always works out that way. 404, thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor Messer. My name is Paul, and I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Welcome.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I took a certification. I took Security Plus. Last time by affair, I have like 615. And I'm like, okay, let me go and try Net Plus first. So my question is like, what do you think? Like, right now I'm studying for Net Plus. And I'm like, okay, let me go take Net Plus first. After that, I will go for Security Plus. So what do you think about that, please?
Well, the two exams are very different. You're probably seeing that already. There's a very different approach to Network Plus than there is Security Plus. The exams are very different. As we mentioned earlier in the study group, the Security Plus exam is very wordy. It's very scenario-based. There's a lot to parse through for the questions. The Network Plus exam is a little more focused, a lot more focused. The questions are much more straightforward. There are still some larger scenario-based questions, but it's not quite the same animal as the Security Plus. Is there a particular job or particular thing that you're taking these certifications for?
So this is going to be a good question. Right now, I'm still going to school. I'm taking a cybersecurity course, and I took my security course last time. And right now, I'm taking CCNA1 course right now. And so, and also, I'm working in one call center, technical support.
Great.
For those Lenovo machine, but it's like when I try my Security Plus, and I fail. I'm like, okay, so maybe I need some basic knowledge in Net Plus. So that was the reason why I'm saying, okay, let me go ahead and take my Net Plus first, and then I will come back to my Security Plus.
Gotcha. So really just trying to form up a little bit more on the resume, have some foundational knowledge that you can bring to the table for the next level up in your interviewing, and just have some, and of course, additional knowledge in the industry. One of the things I constantly talk about as well with security in general, coming from the security world, is that a huge part of network security is the network part. And a lot of people don't realize there is a huge emphasis in understanding the network technologies if you want to be able to protect the things going over that network. So I constantly tell people, if you want to excel with security, get a very good foundation in networking. Understand switching, understand routing, understand how those technologies are implemented in a large enterprise infrastructure, understand how to troubleshoot those environments, understand how a firewall fits into all of those things. The more you know about the networking piece, I find the easier the security piece goes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean having that networking foundation makes your Security Plus exam any easier, because it kind of does, but a lot of the Security Plus exam is really focused on security on the network. But there are some networking questions on there as well, just not as many as you would hope for someone who has network knowledge. You also it'd be nice to have that certification under your belt so that you can walk into Security Plus and really understand it better. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what's expected of them on Security Plus. It's a hard exam. It's very wordy exam. It has a very specific set or a specific tone or style of questions. So, and people in the chat room are mentioning this as well. I think you really have to, even more than knowing the knowledge of what's in the exam objectives, I think Security Plus exam, you really need to understand the exam more. It's almost a strategy of how to take the exam is almost as important of knowing what's going to be asked of you once you get there. So you've already seen a little bit of that because you went through it one time. But now you can take a step back and think, okay, maybe I need to do more Q&A, or maybe I need to do hands-on. That way, when you step into the exam next time, you'll be ready for it.
All right, sir. So thank you so much. That makes sense. I'm currently watching your Net Plus video. Last time I purchased your study guide for Security Plus, I think I might go for also your Net Plus study guide and watch all your video and take some QA. I will try those QA question and then see how it's gonna work. And I will let you know.
It's a great way to do it. Best of luck, Paul.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I think he's going to do fine. He has all the right things in place. Having gone through the exam once before, I think can only help you in those scenarios. Let's go to 480 out in California. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Courtney.
Hello, Courtney. What can we do for you today?
Hi, yeah. So I am going into the IT field, and I'm coming from being a broke musician to now going into security analyst position, and I'm taking this test to further my career. I have a background. I just recently got my associates in Cisco networking.
Nice.
And so this would actually be my first test. I have to say I've been studying this in and out, so I know the content. It's not just about passing a test. I want to know the content, and being money is on the line for me with the $300 versus the $449, which I could just get that instead and just have a backup in case I fail. Would you say, this being the first test, is this something I should go for the $449 package, or is this a test I should, if I know it in and out?
Way to tell if you're ready for this exam is to take some very good sample exams and see how you do. Now, I've been saying this myself because this is not something new. I'm not saying it just because I happen to have a book of sample exams, which are, I think, a good representation of that. But I'm not the only one. There, if you go to I recommend going to the CompTIA subreddit on reddit.com/r/CompTIA.
Yes.
Those folks have great recommendations on what they feel are very good sets of sample exams. So try to get your hands on as many different ones of those as possible. They're relatively inexpensive. They're certainly a lot less expensive than another $300 exam or another $200 to get the backup insurance. By going through those, and I think the availability of those sample exams and the accuracy of what's available out there is very good. So I think by going through those, you should be able to tell how you feel about it. For a relatively small investment, you'll be able to see, wow, I am not ready to take this exam at all. Or you'll say, okay, I got this. Plus, you'll have the advantage of kind of knowing what to expect when you walk in the room, that these are going to be big questions with a lot of sentences, and I'm going to have to look through a lot of these things, and you'll at least be prepared. I kind of feel bad for the person who called earlier that didn't even realize there were performance-based questions on the exam. He walked in and got slammed in the face with those first thing. I can't even imagine. So having some knowledge of those is going to help, and I think just that's the point where some sample Q&A is really going to give you the barometer you need to know, should I spend the extra money for the insurance, or can I get away with it?
Exactly. Okay. That's really good advice, and I appreciate everything you've done. You've helped a lot of people, so including myself. So thank you.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for calling. Best of luck. I think you're going to do fine with those Q&A.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. It used to be there wasn't a lot of good Q&A out there. And in fact, if you go on the internet, some places on the internet do not have good Q&A, which is why I recommend going to that CompTIA subreddit, because people are taking their exams all the time. Here's what I used, and here's what I found was really good. And they will give you some very honest feedback about what's there. To the 240 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. How you doing?
So good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you, sir. I took my Security Plus yesterday. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. It's called 637. Obviously, I used your formula actually. First of all, skip the performance base and went straight to the objective. By the time I finished the objective, I had only like 25 minutes left. I'm like, oh my god!
Right.
Then when I came back to the performance, it was 3 performance questions because I was thinking that I was going to have only 1 performance question. So that way it was just take it and get it over with. But I was looking at 3 performance questions, and 2 was a cakewalk, obviously. But I got stuck on 1, which was like a new company that was acquired, trying to set up a new infrastructure.
So this is one of those situations, though, where time management on this exam, and I think it's because the questions themselves are so wordy. They are just, they read one question, it takes forever to get through the question. And time management is a significant problem on this exam. It's a significant challenge on the exam. It's not a problem if you're ready for it, but you are going to get a handful of performance-based questions at the beginning. 3, I think, is a small number. I think you actually got pretty lucky that there were only 3. Some people get more than that on their exam. That is something you just have to be ready for. You're so close, though. A 637 is not bad. You're very close to hitting that number to get you above the passing rate. I think at this point, it's sort of fundamentals. It's going through the exam objectives. And now, of course, you can, if you didn't get a copy of your exam results at the testing center, you can download that from your Pearson View now. You can log in and download it. So somebody on the internet was mentioning, I think it was in the CompTIA subreddit, they didn't pass. They were so angry, they just left. They did not even stick around to get their piece of paper. But somebody mentioned, well, you can go log on and download that. And they did. And you should use that as a guide to show you what things did I do good on, what things did I miss. And now you've got a place you can kind of focus your efforts on that. It's a valuable piece of intel that I think a lot of people kind of miss when they walk out of the room. That may be something to use as well.
Right. Most definitely. So I'm about to shoot back again probably next week, see how that goes.
Wow, okay.
And thank you for all your information. I've been watching your materials. Hope, keep me up and, doing. So I thank you very much for that, for all the materials you've been providing to us. I appreciate that.
You're doing the right things. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
That's a challenge, of course. There was one exam I took. It was a CNX exam. They don't offer these exams anymore. I had to take it 3 times to pass. So I walk in to take it the first time, miserable. I'm like, I'm going to bounce back. I go in the second time, didn't pass it. Was not even close. And then the third time, and I want to say it was a cabling exam, like network cabling. Like cabling. How hard can cabling be? Apparently very hard. So don't lose the faith. You will get through this exam. That's the real challenge, though, is making that happen. To the 504 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Marcia Holmes. I'm calling from New Orleans.
Welcome, Marcia. What can we do for you?
My issue is I took the test, and like the caller before me, I took it. I made a 662. Went back and took it again and made a 682. And I don't even know where to even. I want to take it again within the next month or so. But I've just been so disappointed.
So
because I've came that close.
That is pretty close. What tools were you using, or what resources were you using to study for the exam?
I've been reading. I've also been watching your videos, reading the book A+ Cram, practice questions, and doing everything, and it just seemed like I don't know where I'm missing this mark at. So now I just feel as though I just need to go back to scratch, and I was looking, and I will buy your notes and the questions, and I'm at a loss because I came that close to it.
So for clarification, which specific exam is it? Was this the one of the A+, the 221001, or the 221002?
No, the Security Plus.
Security Plus. You mentioned the book was an A+ book.
Oh, sorry. Security Plus.
Okay.
Exam cram.
Gotcha.
That's what it was.
So and they make a very good book. Is that the one that is like a textbook, or is that one that is nothing but questions?
No, the textbook.
Okay.
I also have another book they have nothing but questions in it also.
Gotcha. And the last piece of this, and this is one that might be a little helpful, is did you have a chance to maybe do some hands-on or put together a lab to maybe run through a few of these things yourself?
Not really, somewhat, because I have a degree in cybersecurity.
Okay. So you've done some of that.
I have a degree. Yeah, I have a BS. I have a BS in cybersecurity.
So it's really, I think, a combination of things. And you're right, you're relatively close to hitting that mark. It's not like you completely bombed this exam, but the exam itself has its own nuances with the questions. We've talked about that already on the study group. And from what you're seeing in the results of your exams you took, because you should have now the 2 sheets that you get at the end, were there certain topics that were similar across both of them?
Yeah.
So you've got some ideas of maybe where you could spend more time. One place that I like to do a lot of hands-on is the cryptography section. If somebody's challenged on the first section, maybe put together their own firewall. There may be places where you're able to do more hands-on in those sections of things you miss, or simply use your exam objectives as that checklist to go through and figure out where you can really spend the right amount of time for the things that you don't have 100% yet.
And that's where I'm lost at, because I'm like, okay, so I know this part and I know this part, but maybe I need to dig deeper in these areas to get a better grasp on some things.
I think the results you get from the exam should at least give you a place to start, because it should at least show you that maybe the cryptography part was giving you the biggest problems, or maybe it was the policy and procedure part. That's the section that always gives me the biggest problems, which aren't technical at all. It's about knowing IDLE and knowing COBIT and understanding HIPAA, what those things are. I have no interest in that part of the world, yet that's an important part of the IT security piece. So everybody has their own bad parts of that exam. I think the focus is to gather, now it's gathering the exam objectives and checking them off. I think it's now back to basics. You've gone through 2 exams, you've gone through the materials, you've got some foundational knowledge in these topics. I think now it's more about blocking and tackling and drawing lines through the thing that you are solid with on the exam objectives, and circling and focusing in on the things that maybe you aren't.
Okay.
That's some of the best things you can do, I think. I think that'll be the place you go with figuring out what's next.
Okay.
Best of luck.
Good information. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you calling. And it's a challenge, isn't it? You're spending money. It's frustrating to go through these certifications and then not be able to pass it at the end. Well, like I said, I've done that. I've been there. That's not something I want to find myself doing either. But it's one where you sort of do have to go back to basics and figure out, what am I missing? I'm clearly missing something. What am I missing, and where should I go with that? Let's go back to the phone lines. 303. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Carlos. 303, right?
Yes. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay. I just called earlier about the program, but I'm just calling to thank you again. I took a security class at my school. I didn't even read the book that much. I was watching all your videos when I'm at work. I watched all the videos. I passed that class with an A, right? So my question is now, if I go and stick by your notes, then your practice exam, right? Then if I pass that with my security certification, and I apply for jobs, what can I do? Can I say to them? Because most of these jobs, they want you to say, if you have experience. I don't have experience, but all I have is the knowledge, like studying on my own and pass this exam like I did for the A+, the N+. So when I go to interview, when I'm applying for a job, they always ask me, want somebody that have a 2 or 3 years experience, and I don't have no experience. What can I do?
This is sort of the challenge that everybody has once they're trying to get their foot in the door with that very first IT job, and it is an enormous challenge. It is that catch-22 that you're always frustrated with at that level. if I had a job, I could get the experience, but you won't give me the job because I don't have the experience. It is a classic. But I always tell people that you need kind of a combination of things on your resume. And if you don't have experience, there are ways you can get some without having someone hire you. So one of the things, there's two things I would recommend you doing. One of these is to become familiar with the people in your area that work in technology now. And in your particular area, there are certainly people there's a Microsoft user group, there's a Cisco user group, there's probably other user groups as well, but those are probably two of the biggest ones. You need to meet the people that are in those user groups. Of course, you're going to learn things when you go. There'll be somebody presenting a technical topic, and you'll be able to see those things. But more importantly, when it comes time that the topic is over and people are milling around, this is a great chance to meet people who are in your industry, in your area, who are in roles or at least understand jobs that they can use to teach you or tell you what they expect from people who are interviewing. And of course, they'll get to know you. So I always tell people I had about 15 different jobs in IT through my entire career. Some of those jobs were just new roles within the same company. I didn't go to 15 different companies in my career, but I went to 6, I think. And so with the first job, I didn't know anybody in that job. I don't know why they hired me, but they did. But I got my foot in the door. With all of the other 14 jobs I got, I knew somebody who worked there. That person I knew was not always in IT. That person I knew was not always in the hiring manager or even in the group that I went to work for. But somebody knowing you has a huge advantage when you walk into the interview than a company that does not know you. So I would definitely recommend meeting those people. The other thing I would do is find out if there are some organizations in your area, some nonprofits. Maybe you have a church that you're familiar with, and those people have computers. They have systems that need to be updated to the latest version of the operating system. They need somebody to make sure that their antivirus is up to date, that their anti-malware is up to date, and they have somebody ask questions. It's a very it's a type of volunteering that does not require a huge amount of your time, and you probably have complete knowledge on how to check somebody's malware, how to make sure their Windows is up to date. Those types of things you can volunteer for, and that gives you some experience you can put on a resume. So when you walk in, you can say, "Oh, I work with this nonprofit. They had machines that were well out of date. Here's what we did to get them up to date. We had to upgrade their Windows. We bought some new systems. We spec'd them out with this type of environment. I installed the operating system, or I installed the antivirus, and now they are running with the latest stuff at the latest version." Those are great stories for an interview, and it costs you no money, and you were able to help a nonprofit in the meantime.
I can do that. I can install OS, and I can clean the computers. But it just I've never had done any work environment. So that being said, like I want to go back to the other one. Like it's a user group. So I go to Microsoft user group and then whatever user group, and I will find these people. I have to sign up for it and meet up with them, or how this works.
It's at some point in the user group, they're going to order pizza. They'll have a chance for everybody to sit around and talk to each other. And the questions you want to ask people is, "Oh, where do you work?" They work at a company and happens to be a big company or a company in your area. You go, "I'm very interested in a help desk position. I know you guys have a help desk. What types of things do you recommend I should know to be able to get a job at your help desk?" And they're going to tell you, because people are great at these user group meetings. People are so nice, and they'll tell you, "Oh, well, in our help desk, we do a lot of Microsoft. They do a lot of password changes. They handle a particular application that works in a browser," or whatever it is. And they'll give you ideas. You can ask them, "Do you guys hire A+ people? Do you hire Network Plus? Do you hire Security Plus? Do you prefer Cisco? What do you prefer? What types of things?" And they may say, "We don't want any certifications," or they might say, "We look for a specific certification." They'll tell you what they would like to do. The other thing, and I've mentioned this in other groups, is a lot of these companies like to hire people that other employees know. In fact, in many companies, employees will get a finder's fee if they bring in your resume and you happen to get hired. So they might be more apt to ask you for a resume or a LinkedIn connection so that they can then give your resume to their HR department. Their HR department would interview. You could say you know somebody in the IT department, and then if you get hired, that person would also get a finder's fee. It's a win-win for everybody. So that's another thing that does happen quite a lot at these industry meetings is everybody swaps around and gets on everybody's LinkedIn and starts making sure that everybody has up-to-date resumes because there's some financial advantages for doing that.
Okay. So the user group, I have to go to Microsoft website to register for this user group, right? Or
I would think most of the time it would not be a Microsoft website, but if you Google Microsoft user group and the name of your area, there will be a list of things that come up. You'll have no problem finding them.
Okay.
Best of luck. I think that's going to be a great step for you too.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the call. That's always a good one to do. Plus you meet nice people and they will help you amazingly with the things that you want to do. Let's go to 480. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Caleb Bryant. I am calling from Nashville, Tennessee.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you, Caleb?
I just want to say that thank you for putting on these amazing videos. I just recently passed my Security Plus.
Nice.
I scored pretty high for my first time, and I have to say that along with the book from Daryl Gibson and your expertise on your videos has really helped me. And I'm just here to tell everybody that you can do it. Everyone can do it, and just be positive about it and put in the long hours, and the work will pay off. So that's why I wanted to call. Say thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate the call, and I think that's fantastic advice.
Thank you.
That is one of the things, by the way, with the certification that probably is the biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of people is the fear of the unknown. And it's one that it can be crippling, not just in certifications, but in your entire career. It's remarkable how often we are put into roles that we are extremely uncomfortable with. And in many ways, I say fear of the unknown. We're afraid of the role that people are putting us in or the responsibilities they're putting on us. But then once you get into the role and you learn the responsibilities and you see what's being expected of you, turns out it wasn't as bad as you thought. Almost is never as bad as what you thought it was. We tend to create these monstrous situations in our minds. And I think the same thing applies to some of these certifications, that we think we can't find a way to get over that particular hump. But there are people here and people everywhere in our industry that want to see you succeed. We want to help everybody along with getting to the point where they can get that job or get that better job. So don't be afraid of these exams. They are there to test your knowledge, certainly, but they are in no way a bar so large that you would not be able to get over it. And there's a lot of people out here that want to see you get over that bar. So feel free to take advantage of our resources here. Take advantage of the people that are calling into these user groups and the advice that they're giving. Check out the CompTIA subreddits, the other forums on the internet. You will be able to gather the info, but you have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort to be able to learn those things. And you will be able to get through Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus, or whatever it happens to be in your career. This is not going to be the last thing you do that turns out to be a challenge in IT. You will constantly run into challenges in IT. It's really how you react to those challenges that makes the biggest difference. Thanks for joining us on our study group today. Thanks for being here in the first hour. We would not be able to do this without you. We love that you're calling in the second hour as well and your questions in the chat room. It's a great way, I think, that we can all work together to learn this content. We've got another study group ready for you at the beginning of December. Feel free to check the website at professormesser.com/calendar for the next calendar event. We've got all of these live events coming. And of course, we have all of the study groups available for Security Plus also. It's the third week of December. We'll have another Security Plus study group before the entire year is done. Thank you for being here this time. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus study group.